Everyone. This is the Wednesday, September 16, 2020 afternoon session of the Portland City Council. Carla, please call the roll.
Hardesty?
Here.
Udaly?
Here.
Fritz?
Here.
Ryan? Wheeler?
Here, and I'm a little nervous, Carla, because I recognize everybody on this call. Is this an intervention or something I should be aware of? I just want to make sure it's not.
Not a moment too soon, I would say.
No kidding. Better late than never. All right. So with that, let's see. I've got this thing I'm supposed to read. Here it is. Under Portland City Code and state law, City Council is holding this meeting electronically. All members of the council are attending remotely by video and teleconference, and the city has made several avenues available for the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The meeting is available to the public on the city's YouTube channel, eGovPDX, www.portlandoregon.gov/video, and channel 30. But of course, if you're listening to this, you already know that. The public can also provide written testimony to council by emailing the council clerk at cctestimony@portlandoregon.gov. The City Council is taking these steps as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to limit in-person contact and to promote physical distancing. The pandemic is an emergency that threatens the public health, safety, and welfare, which requires us to meet remotely by electronic communication. Thank you all for your patience, your flexibility, and your continued understanding as we manage through this difficult situation to do the city's business. And now we're going to hear from legal counsel on the rules of order and decorum. Who's in the box? Is it Lauren today?
Oh, sorry. You know what? It's Lori.
Lori, good afternoon. Lori, how are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Good.
All right. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communication to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. The published council agenda at portlandoregon.gov/auditor contains information about how and when you may sign up for testimony while the City Council is holding electronic meetings. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When your time is up, the presiding officer will ask you to conclude. Disruptive conduct, such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being placed on hold or ejected from the remainder of the electronic meeting. Please be aware that all council meetings are recorded.
Very good, thank you. Carla, could you please read items 740 and 741 together?
Yes, Mayor. 740, declare intent to initiate local improvement district formation proceedings to construct street, sidewalk, and stormwater improvements in the Northwest Park Avenue and Johnson Kearney Streets Local Improvement District. And 741, authorize, approve, and direct various actions by Prosper Portland, the Portland Housing Bureau, Portland Bureau of Environmental Services, Portland Water Bureau, Portland Parks and Recreation, Portland Bureau of Transportation, and the Office of Management and Finance to facilitate the development of the Broadway Corridor and add the Broadway Corridor Park project to the Parks and Recreation System Development Charge Capital Improvement Plan.
Thank you, Carla. Colleagues, I'm very proud to introduce these next two items, which together represent significant and exciting progress in the Broadway Corridor Development Project. When we say Broadway Corridor, we're referring, of course, to just over 30 acres of land at the west end of the Broadway Bridge. It's a huge site and I believe a huge opportunity, since before I became mayor, the city has been working with the community to create a vision for the redevelopment of the site. Today, we're taking up key agreements that represent a leap forward in the project and move us much closer to actual development. To say that this is a key site for the future of this city, I believe, is a gross understatement. Smart use of the acreage will help us manage our city's growth by adding about 2,400 new homes, a mix of rental and ownership, and a mix of affordable and market rate, and providing 4,000 jobs. Broadway Corridor will be Portland's next great place. It will be a transit hub, an employment center with dense residential housing, provide a place of active recreation, and serve as an example of Portland's leadership around sustainability. It will be a welcoming gateway that will strengthen connections across the river and create a sense of belonging for all of us who live, work, or visit the site. But most of all, it's a key opportunity to reduce racial and social disparities and extend benefits to all communities throughout the city of Portland. The agreement before council today lays the foundation for a diverse and vibrant new neighborhood and charts a new course for inclusive, large-scale community development in our city. Together, the four agreements ensure that this public partnership provides quality employment opportunities, prioritizes benefits for Black, Indigenous, and all people of color, aligns with our climate action objectives, creates new public open spaces, furthers the development of multimodal transportation options, and prudently manages public resources. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone from the steering committee and our development advisor continuum partners to the Healthy Communities Coalition and our city bureaus for working with my office, my colleagues, Prosper Portland, and the Portland Housing Bureau to create this extraordinary vision and agreements that are before us today. Prosper Portland's Executive Director, Kimberly Branham, and Director of Development and Investment, Lisa Woff, and Portland Housing Bureau Director, Shannon Callahan, are here to provide an overview of these items. Kimberly, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Kimberly Branham, Executive Director at Prosper Portland for the record, and I'm joined at the proverbial dais by Shannon Callahan, my colleague and director at the Portland Housing Bureau. Last January, we were before you with our private, public, and community partners to provide a project update from multiple perspectives. In that discussion and the subsequent executive session, we heard Council's key priorities, and we've been hard at work with many of the people that you see on the call today, negotiating and finalizing related agreements. So we are very pleased to be back with you today to seek your approval of these agreements and to move forward with the development of Broadway Corridor. And I'm going to ask Lisa, can you bring up the slideshow? Great. All right. So on slide 2, you'll see our run of show for the day. Shannon and I are going to spend just under a half an hour providing an overview of the opportunity and background, the vision for the site, the implication of the key agreements, and the next steps. And then we'll hear from key partners who've helped shape the project before you, including representatives from our public partners, technical advisors, and the Healthy Communities Coalition members. Everyone has agreed to keep their comments focused to ensure that we have time at the end to hear Council's questions and comments.
Shannon, is there some way to slightly adjust the shared content to my screen? It looks like it's somehow getting cut off on the left. Maybe it's just my monitor. Is anybody else seeing that?
I see it too, Mayor, but it doesn't look like any words are cut off, depending on what the next slide is. But maybe if you made it a little smaller, because even with my old eyes, it's really big, that might help.
There you go. Whatever you just did fixed it. You probably just hit the computer or something, but it worked.
Yeah, I think I
Turned it
literally
off and on.
right to the top, but is that better now?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So next slide, please, Lisa. Thanks. So what do we mean when we say Broadway Corridor? The mayor mentioned that it's a 34-acre district. It's green on this slide, and it includes the 14-acre USPS Site, which is jointly owned by Prosper Portland and the Portland Housing Bureau, as well as Prosper Portland-owned development opportunities on Block R, and the Broadway Bridge site where the Oregon Harbor of Hope is currently located. It also includes Union Station, which is owned by Prosper Portland, the former Greyhound Bus Terminal, PNCA, and the adjacent Future Park block, which is owned by Portland Parks and Recreation. So this is an area with a lot of development potential in the heart of our city. We'll do our best to differentiate between Broadway Corridor development area and the agreements that are specific to the post office site. But if you have any questions, please flag that for us. Next slide, please. Want to ground ourselves in the history and note that from 1964 to 2019, Broadway Corridor was home to the main U.S. Postal Service processing facility for all of Oregon and Southwest Washington. But Broadway Corridor and adjacent blocks have a longer history as a center of commerce and a landing point for new Portlanders. This includes a Chinookan center of commerce and home to Wapato Valley people, Chinese American rail workers, and a train station once envisioned to be the largest rail terminal in the nation. The site to the first performance of jazz in the city at the Golden West Hotel, and a thriving Japantown before Japanese American residents were forced into internment during World War II. Next slide, please. The USPS site today provides us with the opportunity to reimagine a central portion of Broadway Corridor into a 21st century center of commerce as a welcoming place for new Portlanders and those whose families and communities have long ties to the district. Connecting the Pearl and Old Town Chinatown, development of the USPS property could house between 1,800 to 2,400 new households and support between 400 and 8,800 jobs. This reflects nearly 10% of the jobs and residents projected to be added to the central city by 2035. If this growth needed to be absorbed into other locations in our city or region, it could take 400 acres of land and hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure investments to serve the same number of jobs and families with greater climate and transportation impacts for our region. Next slide, please. Redeveloping the post office site has long been a goal of the City of Portland, going back to at least the 1988 Central City Plan. In the Central City 2035 plan, the site was identified as perhaps the most significant opportunity within Portland's Central City. In October of 2015, City Council approved the Broadway Corridor Framework Plan, authorized a line of credit up to $40 million to acquire the site, and established high-level expectations for the site, including that 30% of the residential units would be affordable, which we anticipated was just over 700 units. In partnership with the Portland Housing Bureau, Prosper Portland then acquired the site in 2016 for an acquisition price of $88 million, which was used for the USPS to relocate to Colwood Industrial Park. With the aim of applying lessons learned from our past large-scale public-private partnerships and ensuring equity and inclusion were at the core of this development planning process, we convened the Broadway Corridor Steering Committee. Comprised of 37 people representing a diversity of community, private, and nonprofit organizations, geographies, and lived experiences, the steering committee advised on goals for the project, including the selection of a development partner, the physical concept for the site, the priorities for a mix of uses, equitable community engagement, and community benefits. Next slide. Alongside the steering committee process, we sought to engage a diversity of community members in a meaningful way. Through town hall meetings, pop-up events, online forums, and focus groups, more than 1,000 people provided meaningful input, with a disproportionately high participation from people of color. Through this engagement, we heard specific recommendations like those you see reflected in the icons here, which the steering committee and our consultants helped us digest and informed our plans and subsequent agreements. Next slide, please. In keeping with these aspirations, we believe Broadway Corridor can be a place that holds a significant role in the heart of Portlanders and meaningful to those who build it, call the neighborhood home, their place of employment, or their location to open their first retail shop. Next slide. With the agreements before you today, Broadway Corridor will foster economic opportunity for Black, Indigenous, and all people of color and women through quality jobs, small business opportunities, and from construction through to operations. This map shows the site plan with anticipated uses, including an employment center to the north and prioritizing small business opportunities along the main street of Northwest Johnson. As contemplated in the Development Disposition Agreement and the Community Benefit Agreement term sheets, the private development will create approximately 6,000 construction jobs, pay prevailing wage for core and shell work, utilize responsible contractors, and meet augmented workforce diversity requirements, as well as achieve at least 22% MWDBE firm utilization. The city's infrastructure work and Prosper's demolition of the USPS facility will align with the city's CBA policy, which is traditionally reserved for projects over $25 million. Through demolition and vertical construction, a $4.2 million fund will be created and will complement the city's COEP 1% contributions to support business technical assistance and workforce development. And finally, a separate agreement between SEIU and Continuum will ensure that responsible contractors will be used on commercial buildings for janitorial and security services on site. Next slide. The Broadway Corridor, as you know, is at the heart of a transportation network that includes light rail, streetcar, and bus, as well as Union Station. Through the approved master plan and proposed funding and finance plan and the subsequent intergovernmental agreements with our bureau partners, we plan to build on this infrastructure to create a unique, accessible, diverse, and stunning space that increases connections to people across the region. 2 additional North Park blocks and the PNCA Park will create a large gathering area that feels welcoming to all ages and abilities, fosters a space for community interaction, and allows for different activities and needs. The extension of Northwest Kearny, Park Avenue, and Johnson incorporates a people and pedestrian-friendly bike realm and will encourage east-west ped and bike traffic. A similar north-south connection via the Green Loop climbs from the street grade to the Broadway Corridor, to the Broadway Lovejoy ramp, creating a signature Portland element that connects East Portland and the Broadway Bridge directly to the North Park blocks. And a transportation demand management plan will help meet goals of 85% non-single occupancy vehicle trips by 2035 through a combination of reduced parking ratios, capacity improvements, and pricing strategies. Next slide. We've also thought long and hard about the people that will live, work, and play in this place, and how to ensure that it is intentionally and overtly welcoming to and accessible to people of different races, ages, household sizes, and incomes. The project includes a firm commitment to 720 affordable housing units with culturally specific outreach for communities with historic ties to the district. The site creates opportunities for community space, public art, and programming that will honor and reflect the history of this neighborhood while celebrating and empowering diverse communities. And as contemplated in the DDA and CBA term sheets, we're committed to creating opportunities that foster wealth creation for diverse local entrepreneurs, requiring partnership with a BIPOC developer in order to secure specific development rights, and $3 million to support commercial tenants owned by people of color and people with disabilities, as well as to ensure the provision of modestly priced goods on the site. And in a less visible but equally important way, we will ensure a truly inclusive public-private community partnership with an oversight model that supports implementation of this plan and includes community voices alongside developers and contractors through construction and build out of the site. Next slide, please. And finally, this project will further the city's climate action and resilience objectives through high environmental standards in project design, construction, and development. This starts with a requirement that all new development achieve LEED Gold standards or better. We're partnering with PGE to identify a predominantly electric renewable energy strategy with the goal of using 100% renewables and achieving net zero carbon in alignment with the Climate Action Plan. The provision of 20% of the site as open space and additional tree canopy will provide additional habitat and temperature regulation benefits. And as previously mentioned, the Transportation Demand Management Plan will be an important complement to ensure the use of new and existing multimodal transportation infrastructure. Next slide. With a vision so large, we know that there is no one entity that can bring it to life. The term sheets and the investment strategy before you for consideration today create partnerships and define a collaborative path that is essential to bringing this vision to fruition over the next 20 years. Next slide. Design Commission approved the USPS Master Plan in August, establishing infrastructure standards and building envelopes within which development can occur. Following the Prosper Portland Commission's approval of the DDA, CBA, and Funding and Finance Plan in August, we are here before you for your consideration today. We have before you for your consideration today The CBA term sheet between Prosper Portland, Portland Housing Bureau, and Healthy Communities Coalition, which includes application of the city's CBA policy and community benefit expectations attached to future affordable housing on Portland Housing Bureau sites. The DDA term sheet between Prosper Portland and Continuum Partners, outlining the terms and conditions for property transactions and development of a portion of the post office property, including infrastructure partnership and delivery on the CBA, and an investment strategy, including Infrastructure Bureau investments, the creation of a local improvement district, and the restructuring of our line of credit. Next slide, please. As a true public-private community partnership, the elements of the agreement are closely tied to and must align with one another. We cannot accomplish the visions we've set forth today without a significant private commitment and capital to execute on those outcomes. We anticipate that our development partners will need to secure about $1 billion in outside capital to deliver on this project over the next 15 to 20 years. And as I'll address in just a moment, we'll need a diversity of public and private resources to deliver on the site preparation, community benefits, and streets, open space, and utilities. So Shannon Callahan is now going to talk about the affordable housing approach and the capital required to deliver this essential part of the project that's not included in this chart. Director Callahan.
Thank you, Director Branham. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, and community. Shannon Callahan of the Portland Housing Bureau. As Kimberly mentioned, the Portland Housing Bureau is a co-owner of the underlying real estate within the post office site. As co-owner, we will also be a signatory to the Community Benefits Agreement. I would first like to express my gratitude to the members of the Healthy Communities Coalition for the time they took in a series of conversations to be able to work together to craft provisions in the CBA to ensure that the development of affordable housing within the district will prioritize contracting opportunities for minority and women contractors and subs, to ensure that the housing created will prioritize access to accessible units to those with disabilities, and to ensure that plans for marketing outreach and services for prospective tenants address those with historic roots in the area who have been subject to displacement, particularly Indigenous, Black, Japanese American, and Chinese American communities. As Kimberly noted, the Housing Bureau is committed to achieving 720 units of affordable housing within the Broadway Corridor. While the strategy to achieve those goals has changed as the overall development plans for the corridor have shifted, our commitment to create 720 units of affordable housing has remained constant. The strategy to achieve our goal is twofold. First, to provide land and financing to affordable housing owners and developers to create housing that provides homes for families of all sizes. And secondly, to use inclusionary housing to create a portion of the 720 affordable units. If market rate housing is provided within the post office site, market rate developers will meet their inclusionary requirements by providing 10% of their units at 60% of area median income. Next slide, please, Lisa. In cooperation with Prosper Portland, the Housing Bureau has selected an entire city block located alongside the new park in the heart of the corridor, which will allow for the creation of two separate and distinct new developments of affordable housing. This parcel selection also has the benefit of allowing for the development of the north portion of the block in the first phase of development. In these two new developments, we estimate being able to build 440 total units of housing. But to ensure that we're able to meet our collective goal of 720 units, Prosper has offered to co-develop the NATO Broadway Bridge parcel, or to allow PHB to use a portion of the site known as Block R if needed. We will be developing the north portion of the parcel that I first talked about, which is indicated with a little star, in the first phase of development. We anticipate using a combination of Metro Regional Housing Bond funds and tax increment financing resources. And we expect to release a public solicitation for the property in 2022. Slide 3, please, Lisa. The investments that will be required from the public and private sector are significant to achieve the 720 units. Based on current cost estimates for affordable housing development, we expect it'll cost nearly $96 million in public subsidy. That, however, will be leveraged by more than $20 million in private funding. And as I just mentioned, we're committed to bringing affordable housing to the site in the first phase of development with a solicitation in 2020. Kimberly, if I may turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Shannon. All right, I'm going to walk through the phasing of development and the way that it's related to infrastructure phasing. So we are currently relocating the remaining USPS retail functions from the main building to the ground floor of the adjacent parking garage, thereby allowing for demolition of all the other buildings and the remediation of certain environmental hotspots. The completion of this site prep enables the construction that you see of Northwest Johnson, Northwest Kearney, and the offsite utilities necessary to service the district. This infrastructure will support the first affordable housing project that Shannon just mentioned on parcel 4A, as well as the other parcels shown here on the northern half and contemplated in the development and disposition agreement with Continuum. The DDA term sheet outlines the method by which we will determine a purchase price, beginning with a fair market value appraisal, public and private performance obligations for infrastructure and private development over 3 acquisition phases, including compliance with the community benefit agreement term sheet and remedies for all parties in the event of non-performance over the phases. The DDA also calls for the final relocation of the USPS retail into one of Continuum's buildings, thereby allowing for the demolition of the remaining parking garage. And this demolition provides for the construction of Park Avenue, the park open space, and the final Green Loop segment, construction of PHB's second affordable housing development, and opportunity for additional development partners on parcels 1 and 3. Next slide, please. So concurrent with the DDA negotiations, Prosper Portland, Continuum Partners, and Healthy Communities Coalition, or HCC, began tri-party negotiations last year with additional partner bureaus joining for key meetings. After nearly a year of negotiations, we reached agreement on the CBA term sheet as approved by the Prosper Portland board in August. While construction equity remained an important first chapter of the CBA also covers the operations equity, affordable housing, business equity, tenanting, sustainability, and oversight elements that I touched on earlier. This was a time-intensive process, and I want to express my appreciation to both the HCC and Continuum teams for remaining at the table and their continued partnership, as well as Cecilia Estelano for guiding us through the CBA process, and to the technical advisors that you see listed here for their valuable input and expertise that they shared with us. On the right are some of the community organizations who have to date indicated that they will be signing the CBA. And as mentioned, Prosper and PHB as landowners and investors will be signatories to the CBA agreement along with HCC, and will pass on the relevant obligations to bureaus through the IGAs and to development partners through the DDAs. In order to ensure that BIPOC and women-led firms truly have access to contracting opportunities on Broadway Corridor, we'll be sending out a survey to understand potential challenges and the type of support we could provide to ensure that we meet or exceed our construction equity objectives, as well as delivering on the CBA term sheet. Next slide. As this funding and finance table for the agreement outlines, Prosper Portland is funding 100% of the costs to prepare the site using existing River District tax increment finance resources, together with a modest EPA cleanup grant contribution. Funding for the public improvements and related community benefit outcomes reflects a significant public and private commitment. Early phase street infrastructure will be largely funded with direct private investment and a local improvement district financing mechanism that will run with the land as property is sold and developed. On the public side, funding commitments would come from a number of sources and span over a 15 to 20-year timeframe, from BES and water capital funding to transportation and park system development charges, which will be recouped over time with new development. Prosper also anticipates reinvesting approximately $15.6 million of land sales into the infrastructure improvements that I described earlier. Similarly, CBA costs will be borne by the private sector, internalizing those costs into the development, and the public contribution occurring through land values or sale contribution. Finally, Prosper has also been working closely with the City Budget Office and the Office of Management and Finance to restructure the line of credit. Next slide. As mentioned, the line of credit was originally approved to make available resources for acquisition of the property from the USPS and anticipated to be paid off by 2022 using land sales. With council guidance provided in early 2020, Prosper proceeded with the CBA and development disposition agreement negotiations, prioritizing investing land proceeds into key CBA and infrastructure outcomes prior to repaying the line of credit. and with the possibility that the general fund might pay off a good portion or all of the line of credit. Having completed the master plan and our negotiations, and in light of the impact of COVID-19 on the city's general fund budget, Prosper Portland has worked closely with the City Budget Office and the Office of Management and Finance to identify how we can balance using the land revenues to fund the city and the community priorities, as well as the line of credit repayment. So based on these discussions, we're now requesting we are now requesting up to $15 million of the line of credit be available to be repaid via general fund over time, with the final general fund contribution to be finalized with CBO and OMF and in consultation with City Council once we know the actual land value and revenues that Prosper is able to realize in a few months. Next slide. Based on our discussions with the City Budget Office, this table summarizes the proposed terms by which CBO, OMF, and Prosper would undertake a new line of credit.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. Kimberly, I was going to let you finish, but you got my attention when you talked about the last slide about a general fund investment. Would you go back there, please?
Yes.
And I thought I heard you say you'd be requesting $15 million from the general fund. What year are you planning to make that request?
Great question. So actually on the next slide, it walks through the general thinking right now. So we will be refining this, or would be refining this with City Budget Office and with the debt manager. But right now we are anticipating that Prosper Portland would pay the interest for the next 2 years from the River District program income. And then in years 1 through 5, we would have the general fund pay $8 million, so $2.2 million a year for 4 years in that 1 to 5 year period. In years 6 through 15, we would dedicate $10 to $20 million of land revenue to repay the line of credit. And depending on that value, would ask for up to $7 million of general fund contribution. In years 16 through 20, we would invest the remaining $7 million from the land sales.
Thank you for that explanation. So, as you know, we have a $75 million deficit currently, and we anticipate that going into the next budget year, we will have an additional deficit from the city general fund. Do you have alternative plans if in fact that money cannot be realized, especially when you think about the next 1 to 5 years, knowing about how long it's going to take us to economically recover from COVID? Are there other options that are on the table if those funds cannot be realized through your recommendation?
So I think there's the one way to think about this is that effectively the City of Portland, Prosper Portland, and the Portland Housing Bureau are co-owners of the land, yes, and our investment is locked into that land. So we have revenue that will come out of it once we're able to sell the land. Right. So our first land sale right now is anticipated in approximately 2024. So Prosper Portland will begin having land sale revenue in 2024, which means that because the line of credit was anticipated to be repaid by 2022, we'll need to restructure it in any case, because we're not going to be able to sell land by 2022, just given where we are in the development plan. So by 2024, we will have hope to have our first land sale. And right now, in order to achieve the infrastructure objectives that unlock the development, we need to be able to reinvest those resources into the development. And the same is true for community benefits. So I think if we negotiated these in a different context. And so yeah, exactly. So we're conscious of the fact that we put it together anticipating that up to the full $34 million might be forgiven. In light of COVID, we've really crunched that. So we're now capping it at 15 million. And that's in the worst case scenario if the value of the land is below what we anticipate. So it could be as low as 5 million, 10 million, it could be zero. But if it's not a possibility, I think we would have to go back and look at our development disposition agreement, our community benefits agreement, and our IGAs, because it's now sort of a carefully crafted Rubik's Cube of agreements in order to get us to this full comprehensive benefit. So if we take this out, we would need to holistically consider what the implications are.
No, and I want to be really clear. I totally support where you're going, but I didn't want to be freaking out my newest colleague or my new colleague who will join me in January, because it's important that people understand that this is the plan, but a lot of conditions have changed. So there may be some changes that will be coming down the pike. So I just wanted to stop and pause there for a moment, because if I was the new kid on the block and you were like, I committed how much money, right? Knowing that we are where we are. Thank you so much for that explanation.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And thank you, Mayor.
All right, Lisa, I think, the only other thing that I wanted to say about that, and this goes within the return of investment, is just when we spoke in January and February, we did talk about the relationship between general fund and the boomerang funds. And so I just wanted to give the context. CBO has been really clear that we don't want to earmark any boomerang. And so just want to note that the $15 million that we're talking about between now and 2032 represents about 16% of the River District boomerang and about 5% of the total TIF boomerang
You should be
revenue.
on mute so we're not hearing your conversation.
So it represents 16% of the River District boomerang and 5% of the total TIF boomerang revenue through 2032. So, we had originally talked about maybe having sort of earmarking some of that boomerang from the River District to repay it. We just wanted to notice that it is less than 20% of the River District boomerang and it's about 5% of the total TIF boomerang. So, we do believe that this restructure.
I don't think the general public knows what you mean when you say boomerang.
Oh.
So if you could give a little more of a description, I think that would be really helpful.
Thank you, Commissioner. So the boomerang is referring to the property tax revenue, which will be returned to the city general fund as TIF districts are paid off. So as the River District goes back onto the tax rolls, there will be significant new property taxes. And if we were to earmark a portion of that to help repay the line of credit, it would represent about 16% of the River District property taxes that are coming back online. So, we do believe that this restructure will enable priority infrastructure and community benefits while mitigating the impact to the city general fund, but understand that we will need to have more conversations with CBO and OMF as we have additional clarity. So we believe that this investment delivers significant returns to our community through the creation of welcoming open space and multimodal infrastructure, increased access to quality jobs and affordable housing in a mixed income community, and accommodating anticipated growth in a sustainable manner. We also estimate that this investment will leverage almost $100 million in additional city revenues through property taxes, SDCs, and the like that will continue to be reinvested into our community citywide. Next slide. Before concluding, we wanted to note some specifics around immediate next steps that Council and the community can expect on the project. Following today's hearing, we intend to return next week for your vote on the actions before you. And integral to the funding strategy, Council has a resolution specific to the local improvement district before you today, and PBOT anticipates returning with a subsequent local improvement district formation ordinance on October 21st. As I noted, site preparation is underway, and during this time, we will prepare intergovernmental agreements with all our Bureau partners for your consideration. And the first phase of infrastructure will be under construction beginning in 2022 through 2023. Design on the first phase of private development should begin in 2022 with the first land sale anticipated and construction beginning in 2024. Next slide. So before concluding, we wanted to note we really wanted to express our deep appreciation to all of the partners who are here with us, both on this in front of City Council and who aren't able to be with us today. So thank you so much to the steering committee who invested time in 22 meetings, to the hundreds of community members who came out and shared their perspective, to Continuum Partners for their investment in this project and long-term commitment, the enormous consultant team led by ZGF's Kathy Berg and Nolan Leinhart, and all of the terrific consultants, to all of our City Bureau partners, and to the Prosper team for really putting together everything that Council has seen and putting in hundreds of hours to collaborate and come up with solutions. And to the Healthy Communities Coalition, who was really at the very beginning one of our first partners and helped shape this project from community engagement through the agreement. So thank you to Vivian Satterfield and the entire Healthy Communities Coalition team. So with that, we can either answer questions, Mayor, or go right to invited testimony.
Why don't we go to the invited testimony unless anybody has a burning question at this particular moment? Commissioner Hardesty, you have your hand raised?
Accidentally, Mayor.
No worries. Great. So we have 4 panels, and we would ask everybody, given that we want to hear from everybody, to keep their testimony as concise as possible. We also moved 14 items off of this morning's agenda to the afternoon agenda. So to the point is always helpful. Our first panel are our implementation partners. First up is Mark Falcone, then Lauren McGuire, Christine Leon, and Andrea Durbin. We'll start with Mark. Good afternoon. Mark, your mute's still on.
I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to be here. This has been a 2.5-year walk to this moment, and we are. It's almost exhausting to look back at all of the steps that we've gone through together as Kimberly went through her deck. But it's. I think it's very worth the effort and the time, because I think the Broadway Corridor sets itself up to be a project that can completely set a new precedent for how large-scale projects can distribute equity in a much more balanced way for the benefit of all citizens of a community. We sincerely believe that no city can prosper unless all of its residents are prospering together, and we were drawn to this project for that very reason. We saw in this project from the very beginning an aspiration on the part of the city to really work hard to bring some creativity to the table, to rethink the way these projects are approached. We've done a lot of large public-private projects, and I can assure you that none of them have ever had the kind of ambition in them that this project has. So thanks to Kimberly and the entire Prosper team. Thanks to the steering committee, who put an enormous amount of time into this. And again, the HCC and specifically the negotiating team that we worked with day in and day out over the course of this project. And finally, I want to thank you, Mayor, and Commissioner Hardesty for really stepping in at the 11th hour to help really solidify this transaction. It was there were a lot of hard issues that we worked our way through, and your involvement, the two of you in particular, really helped to make a difference in bringing us together at the very end. So thank you for that. And finally, I can't tell you how excited we are to keep moving now. This is a very long-term project, as Kimberly acknowledged. We've been involved in many projects that go over a 10 to 15-year period of time like this, and there will be lots of changes and iterations as we go, and we will need to be back in front of each other periodically to ensure that we keep these projects moving. So I want to assure you that Continuum is here and committed for the long term, and we are excited to get going. I will share with you that we are at the stage now where we're beginning to pull together an investment consortium and a development partner that will work, a local-based development partner that will work with us as we implement these projects. As was referenced by Kimberly, one of our commitments is that we will be bringing in local development partners with us, especially from the MBE communities. And those conversations have been picking up over the last month, and I can't tell you how excited we are about advancing them further. So thanks again for being here. Thanks for this opportunity. And thanks again, Kimberly, for your leadership.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate Continuum's efforts here. Next up is Lauren McGuire from Portland Parks and Recreation. Lauren, good afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Lauren McGuire. I am the Asset and Development Division Manager for Portland Parks and Recreation. I'm here representing Adina Long, our director, who's on a well-deserved leave this week. So first, we want to welcome back Commissioner Fritz to the helm of our Bureau as our new Portland Parks and Recreation Commissioner. It's great to have you back. We know that parks are essential to a healthy Portland, that they give us life and beauty, and that they provide places to recreate. So the 34-acre Broadway Corridor development vision that we at Portland Parks support contributes to the health of that Portland community. It establishes key infrastructure pieces such as park open space for this envisioned high-density mixed use and mixed income development. We appreciate the leadership of Prosper Portland as we holistically planned for a redevelopment that will add affordable housing, jobs, and include a new park to meet the needs of people who live and work here in the future. It's estimated that by 2035, the already park-lean central city area will gain approximately 38,000 new households and about 51,000 new jobs. So given this intensity of planned residential and commercial development in the central city, Parks recognizes the need for additional park capacity to serve the area. This new park is envisioned in the master plan will meet those needs. It's been a long collaborative journey, a good one, with continuing partners, EGF Place, and our partner bureaus. Our joint agreements, which are consistent with and support the master plan for the site, are documented in the term sheets in your council packets. Supports these term sheets as the development provides an amazing opportunity to increase jobs, affordable housing, and necessary infrastructure and parks in an equitable manner. So intergovernmental agreements between the bureaus, including Parks and Prosper Portland, will follow for council's final approval. Our role in this project will be to develop two final parcels northernmost of the North Park blocks into a local park. When evaluating our service level needs and objectives for the site, the current proposal could meet those park needs for active recreation and a large flexible open space. Prosper Portland and PP&R estimate the project could generate as much as $12.9 million in parks SDCs. So we're proposing an investment of $11.4 million to design and construct the central park feature with a small portion of the green loop. We agree with this system development charge contribution to be made here within the central city. Please note also that we are currently investing $8 million in SDCs to design and construct the Pacific College, Northwest College of Art, PNCA block immediately south of the Broadway Corridor site. Basic design considerations for the conceptual design of the North Park blocks, and in particular the PNCA block and the Broadway Corridor will be done together so that we have a continuous concept, and it will include public outreach. So with council support, the ordinance includes an amendment to the Park System Development Charge Capital Improvement Plan list to include this new Broadway Corridor project that will add new park capacity to the reimagined downtown area. So thank you for allowing Parks to come to the table and support this great project.
Thank you, Lauren. Next up is Christine Leon from PBOT. Welcome.
So good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners. I'm Christine Leon, PBOT's Development, Permitting, and Transit Group Director. So PBOT is an enthusiastic partner with Prosper Portland in developing this central city location. The Broadway Corridor's 14-acre site is situated with direct access to streetcar, Union Station, and the Broadway Bridge, which connects to the east side of the Willamette River. Through this development, we will see many new trips on the transportation networks. And to support this, we are going to help build a continuation of our city's highly effective grid system, improved intersections, and multimodal improvements developed through the realization of the Central City Plan, the River District Standards, and the Green Loop Plan. It's a vision directly aligned with PBOT's work, and it's a vision that others share. Through this development, the Central City will have more connectivity. New streets will break down barriers between Broadway and Lovejoy, and the new east-west streets at Johnson and Kearney will further knit Old Town and Union Station together with Northwest Portland. Improved connectivity allows for transportation mode choices in walking, biking, using transit, and direct access into the transportation hub at Union Station. So why are multimodal improvements important? So throughout the world this past summer, as we saw the positive effects of air quality when people drove less due to the COVID-19 stay-at-home orders. These last 2 weeks in Portland provide us even more evidence that climate conditions are changing. Portland's Climate Action Plan provides goals for us to take steps now. The Broadway Corridor project will introduce new pedestrian and bicycle serving facilities along Northwest Johnson Street and in a cycle track that further citywide climate action change goals, as well as site-specific transportation demand management efforts to reduce dependency on automobile trips. Similarly, the Green Loop will run through this site and beyond and will be sustainably designed with a physically separated multi-use path and green infrastructure. It will be oriented to buildings with green spaces and have a connected, uninterrupted system for rollers and strollers. It's designed to be in an inspiring layout to attract visitors, commuters, and residents across the city to enjoy a safe, enjoyable, efficient transportation and a new way to experience the central city without a car. It's about bringing people together around a safe, inclusive, attractive, dedicated pathway for moving around the central city. This partnership is an opportunity to demonstrate PBOS leadership in an effective manner to support people and the environment as well as the economy. PBOT is committed to supporting this project with the balanced public-private financing structure. We have worked closely with Prosper Portland in the development of the proposed funding and finance plan. As a result of that close coordination, we have proposed an early phase infrastructure improvements to be funded through a local improvement district. Today's action only initiates the LID formation proceedings, and additional financial discussion and analysis are being incorporated into the LID formation ordinance coming to council in October, as Kimberly mentioned. Public funds from PBOT's Transportation System Development Charge Commitment will be mainly focused on the regional capacity realized through the Green Loop. And this source of money flows through the development and generation of some of the buildings that will be realized through this Broadway Corridor project. So as people move here and Portland continues to grow, the public investment in the Green Loop will be recognized for the regional value and significance that it will have for the entire city. So I also want to acknowledge the partnership and collaboration with Prosper Portland, Parks Bureau, Bureau of Environmental Services, and Water. This project has taken many years and much collaboration, and it's a very unique and first Central City 2035 project. We have the opportunity to share in the creation of this new place, and we are very supportive to its success. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Christine. And the last person on the implementation partners panel is Andrea Durbin from the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Commissioners. I'm Andrea Durbin, Director of the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. I'm here to express our support and excitement for this project because the development of the Broadway Corridor helps us meet the goals and policies in the Comprehensive Plan, the Climate Action Plan, and Central City 2035, a threefer. With potentially 4 million square feet of new development and the creation of a new neighborhood, Portland has a unique opportunity to ensure that this project meets our climate goals by emitting no carbon, being 100% renewable, and offering zero carbon ways to get around, all of which help us meet the goals of the Climate Action Plan. As Director Branham mentioned, the city has committed to clean electricity from Portland General Electric as a primary fuel source for the Broadway Corridor project. Electricity supply will be 100% renewable from day one. This is important because going all electric benefits people. It offers people cleaner air and safer indoor air quality and better outdoor air quality for all Portlanders. We all have a new level of appreciation for the importance of clean air. Likewise, the recently readopted Central City 2035 plan lays out a vision embodied by Broadway Corridor. High-density development with a mix of employment and residential uses, pedestrian and bicycle-friendly streets, as well as incorporating a major section of a linear park circling the Willamette River, one of the big ideas in the Central City plan, the Green Loop. A collaborative effort between multiple bureaus, including Parks, PBOT, BES, and BPS, the Green Loop will provide residents, workers, and visitors with access to more places to experience the Central City in an entirely new way and enliven this part of the city as it's transformed into a green and sustainable neighborhood. The Green Loop will be a way to connect both sides of the river and add to the city's active transportation network. It will be an all ages and all abilities route. The Green Loop will also increase access to a wide variety of parks and open spaces and increase the tree canopy, which mitigates the heat island effect in an area dominated by buildings and streets. The Broadway Corridor project offers a historic opportunity to create jobs, add much needed affordable housing, multimodal transportation infrastructure, model zero carbon development, and introduce a new special park to Portland's Central City. I'd like to extend my thanks to Prosper Housing and the other city bureaus working together on this project, the Healthy Communities Coalition, and Continuum Partners for their hard work to get us to this point. And thank you for the opportunity to share BPS's perspective today.
Thank you, Director Durbin. Our next panel is Community Partners. We'll start with Joe McFerrin from POIC. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, for having me. My name is Joe McFerrin. I'm in support of the passage of the CBA as presented. I'm the president and CEO of Portland OIC and the Rosemary Anderson High School. Now, I'm a proud member of Maui and really enjoyed this work with HCC and their leadership. The Community Benefits Agreement negotiated by the Healthy Communities Coalition contains a critical breakthrough for people of color and women to achieve high wages, family health care benefits, and security of a construction career. The CBA allocates $4.2 million to support pre-apprenticeship programs that will allow community-based programs like Oregon Tradeswomen, Portland Youth Builders, Constructing Hope, and POIC to provide the skills, training, and individualized support to participants to ensure they have what they need to be able to begin a new construction career. This past week, I visited our trainees as they were doing some work out at the Kenton's Women's Village. They were repairing a plumbing issue and they were rebuilding steps. And during lunch, I had an opportunity to look them in their eyes. And these are young people who are in desperate need of hope and an opportunity to land a career that will uplift themselves and their families. And as I looked into their eyes, I committed, as I've done before, to do everything in my power in partnership with all of you in today's meeting and so many others to make sure that they have an opportunity at a new life and a new vision with lots of hope. When I first learned about this program many years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, something really stuck out at me. And it was this phrase that the Broadway Corridor would be a once in a generational opportunity. And so while I am so inspired by the accomplishments that have been made thus far, I will not be truly happy until I visit the project and see people that look like me and look like other folks from other communities of color working to make the project a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Next up is Vivian Satterfield from Verde and the Healthy Communities Coalition Leadership. Welcome, Vivian.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Hello, Commissioners. Good afternoon. My name is Vivian Satterfield. I have the privilege and honor of working for Verde. The Healthy Communities Coalition is a program of Verde. I've spent a lot of time talking about the Broadway Corridor and the Healthy Communities Coalition, so I'm going to kind of keep my comments brief so you can hear directly from the amazing community leaders that I've been building relationships with that really span I think about Nick Sovey gave me my first job when I moved to Portland 12 years ago. So my roots here are deep. The relationships that we have here are really deep. And I was able to work on this project and the Healthy Communities Coalition, spanning 2 different organizations and professional pursuits of mine. So really this community has allowed me to continue working on this incredible vision of how we can get development right in the city of Portland. And so I'm really, really excited for this day. I just want to emphasize that, as a part of the negotiating team, we're a 7-person member team that became very, very tight over a course of a year. And we fought hard for all the provisions that our community visioned and tasked us with, this wide, broad sweeping directive to win community benefits. And so many of those provisions made it in here. And we still didn't get everything that we wanted. There are still some things that I think that we need to continue striving for. So the way that I describe this to people is that we are just lifting the floor. We're just setting a better standard from where to begin operating on when it comes to development here. There's things that we've never done before that are in the CBA. I'm excited to continue building power and continue to build from that so that we can continue to do this again and win the next CBA on another large scale development, because the actual need in our community is so great. And we're all living through this extraordinary period of time in which the confluence of multiple crises is showing us that there has to be a different way of doing business. And so that's why I'm so excited to be here alongside my community-based partners as a part of the Healthy Communities Coalition. This is one example, one way I think that we can do things differently, we can do things better, and I'm excited to see us succeed. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Vivi. We appreciate it. Next up is Marcus Monday from the Coalition of the Communities of Color. Welcome, Marcus.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to address you today. Especially I'd like to acknowledge my former colleague at All Hands Raised and your newest commissioner, Dan Ryan. It's the first time I'm testifying in front of you in this capacity, sir, and I'm glad it's on an issue that is so important. My name is Marcus Mundy. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I am the executive director of the Coalition of Communities of Color. Our mission is to advance racial justice through cross-cultural collective action. That's why we support the work of the HCC. We're proud to do that. HCC is more than 20 racial and environmental justice community organizations, some of them, as Vivian said, CCC members, are partners that organize labor, small business and affordable housing organizations, and they all set out to ensure that the Broadway Corridor was developed on a foundation of racial equity. I'm proud to say that we fought for and won significant guarantees, many of which you've already heard about this afternoon, and they include acknowledgement of the white supremacist history of the Broadway Corridor area, whose entire communities, Indigenous, Black, Japanese American, and Chinese American, were forcibly displaced. It also ensured that housing would be developed and intentionally tenanted, I think you heard that from Kimberly, with BIPOC families going forward. It created opportunities for BIPOC individuals and white women to pursue construction careers and to get the training and support they need for economic advancement, as Joe said. And it established new, stronger standards to ensure as many construction workers as possible receive good healthcare benefits. And finally, it prioritized support for BIPOC and persons with disability-owned businesses, reasonably priced goods and services, for example, a $1 cup of coffee, as commercial businesses are established in the Broadway Corridor. In addition, and critically, we negotiated strong community oversight and enforcement provisions so that BIPOC community members will have the ability to ensure that all the provisions of the CBA are made real and impact our communities as intended. In closing, and while I continue to sadly marvel at how the concept of racial equity and fairness in most of our institutions remains a radical notion, I am delighted to say that this landmark Broadway Corridor work, with its collaboratively constructed CBA and the city leadership that was wise enough to champion it, will put Portland on the map as the model for accountable, responsive, redressive government that is reflective of both the historical systemic displacement and other wrongdoing that occurred, but also the acknowledgement of the unfettered potential for equity in Portland when Portland includes all of its residents in planning, economic opportunity, and wealth creation. This project takes an important step in this process, so please, commissioners, support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate your leadership as always.
Thank you.
Next up is Felisa Higgins from SEIU. Welcome, Felisa.
Hi, thank you. Mayor Wheeler, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Felisa Higgins. She, her, they, them are my pronouns, and I'm a political director for SEIU Local 49. We represent 15,000 members and thousands of janitors and security officers in the Portland metro region. And I'd like to start off by thanking Prosper, the HCC members and staff, and Continuum for really imagining something new and better when it comes to sustainable development. I'll keep my comments short and we'll send longer written testimony later for your vote next week. The Broadway Corridor project agreement will create ongoing good jobs in the operations and some economic security for many janitors and security officers that are often unseen. These agreements are a real commitment to workers of color, women workers, immigrants, and other marginalized groups that will stay with the project long term. The CBA will require building owners and tenants who contract for janitorial and security services to contribute to a workforce development fund. This fund will be used to train workers in stopping sexual harassment and discrimination, which unfortunately is rampant in these industries. It will train workers on using green cleaning techniques to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and protect workers' health and safety, as well as broaching the issues of climate change that we are all living today. The agreement contains language stressing the importance of creating good jobs, as well as contracting opportunities for people of color and women. I'd like to highlight this point because we believe that this agreement is an example of how we can get around this issue where often contracting is pitted against workers of color. We're done allowing some people to pretend that these are either or choices, and we know that successful contractors of color can pay fair wages and health insurance to their employees while lifting all boats. SEIU is a member of the HCC, and we are enthusiastically recommending your support of the negotiated agreement with Prosper Portland and Continuum Development. The CDA meets a true definition of sustainability, and I look forward to seeing it in reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Felisa. We appreciate it. It's good seeing you. Next up is Keith Edwards from the IBEW. Welcome, Keith. I'm seeing some head nods. Is he not with us today? He's not with us today.
I think Michael Birch is testifying next.
All right, I see Michael. Michael, you're up.
I am here. Hello, good afternoon. Yeah. Michael Birch with the, I'm Community Relations and Outreach Specialist for the Northwest Regional Council of Carpenters and Maui co-chair. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I am proud of the work we've done with labor and community organizations to support the components of the Community Benefits Agreement that ensure equity and inclusion in this construction industry on this project. The CBA will provide economic security and health care to new generations of Portlanders because of the provisions that include prevailing wages and benefits for construction workers, use of responsible contractors on the site, including providing full family health care, with contractors doing $1 million or more in contracts a year, significant opportunities for MDBE and WDBE contractors over the life of the project, attainable goals for women and people of color by apprenticeship and trade, which is extremely important, and good faith efforts to negotiate project labor agreements. The work of HCC on this project is to represent communities who have long suffered from the lack of opportunity because they didn't have a voice or a seat at the table, to advocate for communities who have historically been underrepresented in the positive outcomes of historic public policy and overrepresented in the negative outcomes of those same policies. Also to support those who have been denied a bite of the prosperity and wealth creation apple while watching it uplift others around them. Black Portlanders have particularly been hit hard by public policy, which I might add has been acknowledged. In closing, I'd like to say I support the term sheet. I support the CBA that's coming on the Broadway Corridor. This project is an opportunity to get some things back on track for BIPOC communities. By no means will this agreement correct all of the systemic issues in our city, but we hope it will offer hope and real opportunities to those we represent. I look forward to the opportunity to help Prosper and the City of Portland attain their workforce goals on this project. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Michael. We're appreciative of your work on this. Next up is Nick Savi from Rose CDC. Hi, Nick.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Nick Sovey. I'm the director of Rose Community Development and also a member of the Healthy Communities Coalition and the East Portland Action Plan. Community benefits agreements are a longstanding goal of the East Portland Action Plan, and we would love to see a similar kind of multi-party effort in East Portland in the future. I support the community benefits agreement negotiated by the Healthy Communities Coalition that makes critical advances for affordable housing, particularly for Indigenous, Black, Japanese American, and Chinese American communities who were forcibly excluded from housing opportunities throughout the history of the city's core, the rest of Portland, and the United States. The agreement will not only make more than 400 affordable housing units available, it will also ensure there is an intentional outreach to welcome Indigenous, Black, Japanese American, and Chinese American communities throughout Portland's newest neighborhood. The agreement puts in writing affordability, but it also prioritizes accessibility. Portland Housing Bureau has agreed to increase opportunities to include Type A accessible units within the Broadway Corridor development and require at least 5% of the units developed on Parcel 4 will be accessible to persons with mobility disabilities and 2% for persons with hearing or visual disabilities. I urge City Council to stay engaged with the project to ensure that it meets its goals. Broadway Corridor should be a place for everyone and provide benefits for Portlanders who have been left behind by previous versions of urban renewal. I think the community benefits agreement is a significant step forward. Finally, I just wanted to thank all of you public servants, and you have a really difficult job in the best of times, and these are obviously not the best of times. And just wanted to acknowledge everything you're doing for the city, and we look forward to better days ahead.
Thank you for that.
Hear, hear, Nick. Thank you. Appreciate your work on this as well. Next up, Nate McCoy from NAMAC, Oregon. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for having me today. For the record, my name is Nate McCoy, the Executive Director of NAMAC, Oregon, which stands for the National Association of Minority Contractors. And I'm very honored and pleased to represent this organization that has had a foundation of 51 years as the oldest minority association in America, and born out of Oakland, California, where the civil rights movement has been profoundly impactful all over our nation. And today, I do not want to belabor the points. I think we support many elements of the CBA, but it's hard to support a CBA until you get into the details. And as we all know on this call, the devil is always in the details. So while I appreciate all of the community benefits that, the pretty pictures and everything that we saw that will provide more housing, more commercial space, more parks activities, I worry about what that looks like from the other vantage point on who's really going to build this project and how are we going to sustain the workforce from a high living wage job perspective. And I think I call out what Commissioner Hardesty said earlier and has been founded in our recent audit reports around other contracting programs that pointed out resources that were never tapped and never used to support these programs. So while it's a somewhat bittersweet moment for me, I agree that the CBA could be a model that shows some success. Still, the jury is out. But I really want to press the fact that NAMAC is the largest association out there, and I will let Latino Build speak for their own. But we have almost roughly 80% participation on the non-union side for our members. And on every CBA that I've seen to date, I have not seen a huge amount of representation on those projects by non-union contractors. And so my worry is when we asked to be a part of the negotiating table, we were not welcome. We were not invited, and we were not able to give our legacy and experience on how to weigh in and shape this for everybody. Because to date, as we mentioned earlier, 7 people were appointed, not one minority contractor representing any one organization or even the contractors that I'm speaking of in the non-union community were at the table. And for us to have what's coined a CDA community benefit, I would think we would want all to embrace where we are today. And so I appreciate Kimberly giving us an opportunity to be technical advisors to them in a what I would call sparingly way, because we just were not able to activate us all together to really culminate a buy-in that everybody would embrace. And that's where I think the bitterness comes in, is that we have tried to build a legacy, and I've worked for many on this call where we have done a great job. But in this one instance, where I've been involved in other CBAs and PLAs, we were not at the table to make sure that this happened. So I wanted to put that out there for the record. And my recommendation to council, whether we approve it today or not, we need to make sure that we have a caveat in the language, an amendment, or call it a request to, kind of make sure that we do a survey, as Kimberly mentioned earlier, because without the buy-in from contractors who are going to be required to do this, I don't know how we can sell this and package this as a community benefit. So for me, I don't think we're trying to deny that this community benefit needs to happen. I think we want to make sure we flesh out all the details that have yet to be discussed and bought in from the small business perspective. So with that said, I am really eager to hear, what commissioners, councilors have to say. We were not invited to the Prosper Portland board table as well to at least give our feedback like we're doing today. So I just welcome any questions when we get to that point, to just make sure that if we're going to move this forward, that we've all bought into it. So with that, thank you for the time, and look forward to dialoguing with you all.
Thank you, Nate. Commissioner Hardis.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Nate. I greatly appreciate your willingness to be here today to speak your truth. And let me just assure you that I value your participation in this process. I think we all agree that we want all contractors to have a living wage, to have health care and all the opportunities that come along with that. But I am also mindful, as you know, I've been in this conversation for 30 plus years. And I am also mindful that most minority businesses don't start off as union shops. And so I will make a commitment to you on the record today that I will work with Prosper and the committee and the primary contractor to make sure that we find a way to have you have a seat at the table. You are the strongest voice for those who don't have union representation. And I think it's actually disrespectful to not have you be at the table, because again, we all have the same outcomes that we're looking for. And I wish you had reached out to me earlier. I had always assumed that you were part of the group that was helping to move this forward. I can tell you that Mark and I have had a lot of conversations as well. And I know that our primary contractor is also committed to making sure that there are opportunities for non-union shops to become union shops, because all of us want people who are going to have living wages and those opportunities. But I've been following contracting at the city of Portland long enough to know that if you can't get your foot in the door, you can never become a union shop. And so I want to apologize to you that you felt you were left out of this process, because had I known that, I would have actually made a bigger stink early on. And so I am grateful that you are here today. You're putting this information on the record, and I'm putting my voice on the record to assure you that whatever happens with the vote, we will make sure that your organization is represented on this board. I think that we cannot move forward without that happening. So I've said it here, and so you can hold me accountable to that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Nate. Next up is Liana Patron from Latino Build. Welcome.
Hi there.
Hi.
I want to give you guys a little bit of background. Hello, by the way, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Liana Patron, and I'm the Executive Director of Latino Build. I'm also a first-generation Latina and raised in a family of union construction businesses. Latino Build appreciates the opportunity to provide technical assistance to Prosper Portland on this project. At the same time, we echo what Nate had also said, is that we were not brought in, even though our membership is composed of a significant amount of open shop businesses. Latino Build is a nonprofit organization that serves Latino-owned construction contractors, those who support Latino-owned construction businesses, and construction businesses that have a large Latino workforce. Maybe some of you know, but 29% of construction workers, and growing, are Latino, but are significantly less likely to become foremen, superintendents, or company owners. Latino Build's reason for creation is development. It is a process of improving the quality of Latino lives, opportunities, and capabilities by raising our level of living, self-esteem, and freedom. Latino Build is not only committed to this project for years, but for decades to come, with all ever-changing goals for the betterment of our community. The Latino community is not only about speaking our language, but it's also about understanding cultural norms and specifics. Our history is deeply rooted in routinely being cheated out of money and wages, denied basic health care or even protection, and we have always fallen victim to racial profiling. Our participation in this project is to identify barriers and assist the project's success for all minority groups. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you all. I, of course, am also in agreement with what NAMAC and Nate has provided to you today, and we are here to represent this significant portion that we find is often not included in many of the negotiations, is that our Latino community.
Thank you very much for that, Leanna. We appreciate it. And last but not least is Kenichi
Onyagisi.
Sorry?
Onyagisi.
Onyagisi. I was close, but not exactly. Thank you. I appreciate that. Welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners. My name is Kenichi Onyagisi, and I am the Executive Director of Professional Business Development Group. We are a trade association, kind of like NAMAC and Latino Build, of approximately 90 firms here in Oregon. And our association comprises of both union and non-union firms. Interestingly, I took a swath of our membership representation today, and we're about 75% non-union. And over the last few months, we have sat down with our fellow trade associations, NAMAC and Liana. And for me, this was a first. This project was the first project that brought the three of us together to talk about the issues on this project. And for 3 months, we talked about the things that impacted workforce and contractors. PBDG is a member of Maui, Metropolitan Alliance of Workforce Equity, because we are committed in a declining workforce environment to find solutions for both contractors and workforce to have win. So over a series of dialogue, as we went back and forth with the trade associations, we came together and brought recommendations for the CDA. At PBDG, we had meetings with our non-union members, and we sat down and said, what are the issues impacting you on the CDA? And with leadership from non-union firms, from as large as firms that had been in existence for 25 years, all the way to firms that had been in existence for 1 year, we came back to the table, and the three of us sat down and provided recommendations on what we thought needed to go into the CDA. There were certain aspects of the CBA that took a lot of deep work, and I really appreciate the work that HCC put into this, because through a series of back and forth conversations, we finally came together and we brought recommendations to the group. So PBDG is in very strong support of the CBA for the following reasons. It has not only allowed for strong, robust goals for minority and women-owned firms in workforce and creating strong diversity goals, but it's brought voices together. It's allowed us technical assistance providers to have pathways to help establish minority and women-owned subcontractors, to grow existing ones, and to help develop general contractors who are also minority and women. We want to see hundreds of firms that are owned by minority and women be large enough to take on these projects. And most importantly, it's allowed dialogue between trade associations and helped us to find commonalities and compromise. Commissioner Hardesty, I really appreciate your support for minority contractors. I can assure you that through this process, I personally felt that we have collectively aired our voices. Through that 3-month period, we did go back and forth on the things that were important to minority. And I loved hearing from both Neat and Liana on the things that were important to them. As an association with 75% non-union members, it was really important to me that the things that we're talking about would not be hindrances to my businesses to prosper. We vetted these things with them. And the most important thing, as I heard from our members, were we want to be able to compete. The unions are great and they bring a lot of perks and a lot of perspective that non-unions cannot always compete with. But this project allows us to start setting them up for that. To be able to compete in a declining workforce was very important to our members. And I'm very glad and excited to have that opportunity to do this on this project. So to Prosper, Director Branham and Director Shannon, thank you for your work and for allowing us to come together to have dialogue.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody who participated in the panel presentations today. Thanks for your tireless work on this. So at this point, colleagues, I'll ask if you have any further questions from staff or any members of the panelists that we just heard. Carla, how many people do we have signed up for testimony on either of these two items?
No one signed up for either of these, Mayor.
Great. So the last part of the show here is colleagues, any further thoughts or questions before we call the roll?
Mayor, I just had one question for Shannon Callahan. As I was reviewing the materials that showed the financial investments that took place, and it showed the city, what do they call it, infrastructure bureaus, right? But the investment for the Housing Bureau did not show up in that chart. And I know that you've got this commitment. So you're going to build like over 700 affordable housing units. And I'm just trying to figure out where those dollars are represented in the materials that we received for this meeting.
Commissioner, I don't believe that you received them in the packet of materials as much as in a little bit of the presentation that we showed today. So what we do know is that for the first phase of development, which will be the north part of the block that PHB will take ownership of, we will be using Metro funds as well as remaining assets that we have from the Tiff River District. We do not, as of yet, have the funds in hand for the next phases of affordable development. We do anticipate using future resources. I will be frank with you. We will hope at some point that the voters of Portland would support another Portland housing bond, of course, if City Council agrees to a referral. But the funds for the remainder of the development are not in hand, nor are they within our forecast at the present moment.
And is a housing bond the only avenue for those funds to be developed? Don't we have 2 housing bonds already out at the moment? And
Well, we'll be using the Metro funds for the first phase of development, but we don't anticipate the second phase being able to be developed until some of the critical infrastructure is put in. And those are outside of the projections that we have either for the current housing bond, both in terms of timing and in terms of monetary investment. We would also, even if the timing were to align, we would not want to put any one type of funding source that we promised the voters of Portland would have geographic representation so heavily into the corridor. So,
Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Thanks, Commissioner Hardesty.
Colleagues, other questions? All right, seeing none, Carla, and given that there is no public testimony, please call the roll on the resolution item number 740.
Hardesty?
Let me start by just saying thank you to all of you. I want to especially thank Kimberly Branham, because I know that this was a very heavy lift when you are talking about something that no one has ever seen before, that we've never done before, that there was no roadmap or blueprint on how you make it happen. It's difficult anyway. And so I want to thank you for hanging in there, staying at the table, not giving up. I also want to thank Mark and his staff because, again, having a developer who isn't from here, who has a contract to do something, again, that's never been done before, that we've never envisioned before. The fact that you stayed at the table and you never left I am very, very thankful and appreciative of you, Mark, for your commitment to this project. We get developers tell us all the time how committed they are to Portland, but then the minute it gets a little hot, they're off back to their hometown and we never see them again. And so I want you to know that you have earned my respect and you've earned my support. We've had many conversations over this last year about how to make this a model for how cities partner with developers and community to get the kind of outcomes that can be enjoyed by all community members. We at the City of Portland have a very poor record of actually making sure that our entire community benefits from big construction contracts, and you don't have to look far to find out how we failed over and over and over again. I have every confidence in the team that will be monitoring this project, that will be working to make this vision a reality. And I want to assure the Oversight Board that I'm not going anywhere. In fact, I'll probably be a thorn in your side for a while because I will continue to be asking the questions that I know my community will continue to ask because of the lack of trust we have based on the outcomes we continue to get around contracting in the City of Portland. I am proud of the work that this group did. I know that it got heated a couple of times and people thought, oh, this is never, ever, ever going to come together. But guess what? Here we are. We have a vision. We have an opportunity to not just meet the letter of what is in the CBO, as well as what's going to be developed, but we also have the opportunity to actually to set a path that hopefully will be emulated by other developers every step of the road moving forward. We continue to have tension between union and non-union shops. I think you won't find anybody in the City of Portland that is against people being paid living wages with good benefits and opportunities for success. But I also am very aware that it takes some folks longer to build the infrastructure because of the challenges that all our systems have when you are Black or brown trying to negotiate a system that wasn't built for you. We're doing a great job right now talking about Black Lives Matter. But I got to tell you, the rhetoric will disappear very soon, and people will go back to doing what they've always done. If we don't have accountability built into this project, this will be another missed opportunity that the city of Portland will be scratching its head to say what happened. I want you to know that I'm not willing for us to have a missed opportunity. I want every Black contractor, every Brown, every Latino contractor, every Indigenous contractor, every woman contractor to have an opportunity to work on what will be a showpiece for the city of Portland for decades to come. And if we as a community are creating barriers to prevent people from doing that, we need to actually stop that. And we need to remove those barriers so that we can help these companies build themselves into union shops that have family wage jobs, healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. I am so proud of all of you. I especially want to once again say, Kimberly, you know, I've been a thorn in your side since the day you and I met. And it was long before I came to the city council, because I was always bugging her to go, why can't you do more? Can't you do more? Why are you investing here and not investing here? I've been a thorn in Kimberly's side as long as she's known me, but she's also been the most gracious person to allow that thorn to continue to bug her. And quite frankly, she's made some incredible changes because I don't think it's just because of me, but because of all the other thorns in her side that remember the old development corporation that works for the city, that represented the city of Portland. And so thank you all. I am proud to vote aye. But I want to also remind you that I will continue to be a thorn, because I expect this to be a showpiece and not merely something that checks boxes. Thank you all. Again, I vote aye.
Daly?
Well, since we're technically voting on an LID, I'll just thank Andrew Abbey and our PBOT team for their work on this item. And because you're all in the room today and won't be here necessarily when this item comes back, I just want to thank everyone for their hard work getting to where we are today. I'm going to be honest, I didn't necessarily think we would arrive at this day. It feels like we've been having these conversations for 4 years. Maybe we have. Time is a little flexible for me these days. I am really pleased with the work that Healthy Communities Coalition has done. And as Vivian noted, that we are really raising the standard for future projects. I look forward to a day where how companies treat their employees and their communities and the environment are a major determining factor of their worth. And this is just, it's very hopeful. I'm sure I'll have more to say next week. I was not prepared to give a closing statement on something we're not voting on, so I will just say aye.
Fritz.
Thanks to everybody who's here. Oh, of course, I get a phone call coming in at the wrong time. Sorry about that. It was the first one today, isn't it always the way? No, go away. Hang on a sec. Well,
we'll hold while you take your call, Commissioner.
No, it's really distracting. Sorry about that. The challenges of home offices, which I know we're all dealing with. At least my cat's not scratching me, so there's that. Anyway, let me start over since it's now stopped. Thank you for your patience. Thank you very much, everybody who's here today. And for everybody who's been involved in this has been a very, very long process. In fact, I think Kimberly Branham started working on it when she was with Mayor Sam Adams. And there's been multiple fits and starts. And I think it was Mayor Charlie Hales who and the team at that point who were able to close on the post office site. And so it's been at least a decade that this has been worked on. So it's truly significant that here we are. And what perhaps even more significant is no public testimony. Now, I recognize that there were lots of people invited to speak, and I thank each one of you for that. I honor those who spoke with concerns and with feelings of being left out. And in particular, I appreciate Kimberly and the mayor for inviting people who aren't necessarily going to say everything's hunky-dory and good job to be part of this discussion. So thank you, Nate and Leanna and others who are, I mean, we're all very clear. You are all going to continue to hold the council's feet to the fire. And we are all very hopeful that we are getting these questions right. We did have input from Michael Spoilick and folks experiencing disabilities that piece needs to be also paid attention to. I know, having talked with Director Callahan, that is front and center of what the thinking is. This should be a really, really wonderful community. Thanks to Lauren McGuire for reminding us that it's going to have beautiful parks, and that another one is being made nearby, which I know that Commissioner Fish chose to invest in development charge money there, and he would be very glad to see this project moving forward because, like me, he's been involved in it for 12 years. So with that, kudos to everybody. Thank you so much. Bye.
Ryan.
Yes, good afternoon. And thank you, Kimberly Branham and your team and all of your community partners. I remember when I first leaned into doing racial equity work, it was like over a decade ago, and I met with several people of color in 1 week. And one of the themes was how they always felt they were included at the end, but not at the beginning. So what I heard today was a lot of testimony that complemented the fact that they were brought along on the ground floor. That's a kudos. I also was able to witness a little bit of it. You're all being very, thoughtful and kind, but you could also feel a little bit of that tension that is necessary as you move forward in something that's new and different. And so I personally welcome that tension and hope that we continue to lean into that. And the fact that everyone brought up community benefits agreement, clearly that's a value that is going to be there and will perhaps be behind some of this messiness. And the full family benefits is something that also was repeated often. So those are my two big takeaways are the values around the community benefits agreement, the full family benefits. And I also appreciate the financial update on the line of credit. And that is a big deal, especially in what we're dealing with in our economic uncertainty. So anyway, but it had a lot of accountability, a lot of truth telling, and let's just continue to lean into that and we'll be fine. I vote aye.
Wheeler?
Well, I'm also going to cheat. I'm going to give my full speech, even though we're voting on the LID today. It goes without saying, this is one of the most complex and ambitious development projects that the city of Portland has ever undertaken. The team led by Prosper Portland, the Portland Housing Bureau, have worked with an array of public and private and nonprofit and community partners to address a staggering number of key decisions. And this team, the folks on this call, and there's many others as well, have led with just an incredible sense of prioritizing equity and acknowledging the need for collaboration. And while I'm really proud of the accomplishments today, as I just look at everybody on this call, what really makes me happy about this project is we're all a little bit cynical. And what's holding us together is a sense of reality. What we're trying to do here is incredibly different from past development projects. It is incredibly ambitious, and it's going to be really difficult to pull this off. And I appreciated Marcus reminding me that I oft said, and others have too, that this is a once in a generational opportunity to build a brand new neighborhood from scratch in our city's central core. Not many cities get the opportunity. It's almost like a do-over. You just don't get this opportunity very often. And we have a chance to have the values of the Broadway Corridor reflect our current thinking and our future aspirations for this community. So super ambitious. Are we going to succeed on every front? No, I don't think we'll succeed on every front, but I do know that we're all putting in a good faith effort. We're all working together to make it happen. So with persistence and collaboration and the leadership you're all providing, clear communication, and frankly, an assistance on putting our communities front and center. We, as a city, acquired the site. We created a full active steering committee to guide the development process. We spent 18 months collecting public input and feedback and reflecting on that feedback and input. We selected a private sector development partner with the experience and the level of commitment necessary to develop a project of this size and scope. And Mark, as we've discussed many times, you were selected not just because of your experience, you were selected because of the values that experience was based upon. It was a good fit for the city of Portland. I believed that then, and I believe it even more today. We created a master plan that includes large-scale green development, affordable housing, open space, and bicycle and pedestrian needs. It reflects our desire to create a global showcase of sustainability and a bedrock commitment to our climate action goals. We negotiated a community benefits agreement, a feat never accomplished on a public-private project of this size anywhere in the United States, and one that I hope is now a blueprint for future developments, not just here in the city of Portland, but I believe cities all across the United States and perhaps elsewhere will be looking to this as a potential template. This project, of course, will change the landscape of our West Side. It'll bring affordable homes and jobs to Portlanders. It'll give everybody new places for recreation and time outdoors. And by raising the bar on community benefits, it's expected to ensure that the economic opportunities are shared amongst all of us. I know that city leadership, Kimberly Branham, our Bureau Director, Shannon Callahan, and others, and our council will continue to prioritize inclusion, shared prosperity, and community leadership as this project moves forward. And just knowing all of you and looking at all of you, I know you're going to hold us accountable and you'll hold yourselves accountable, and we're going to have spirited disagreements going forward. And frankly, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's not forget that either. So thank you for the hard work that got us here, the hard work that is yet to come, and your commitment to serve the community and our society at large. Thanks. I'm super happy to vote aye. The LID is approved. Are there any other? Commissioner Hardesty got the joke. I'm glad. Next up, is there any further comment on the ordinance before I move that along? Colleagues? No, I'm seeing head shakes. No, please move on. The ordinance item number 741 is the first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you all. We will now move into our time certain for 3 p.m., proclaiming September 15th to October. Oh, sorry, Carla, I'm taking your job. You should have.
That's okay.
Hannah, did you have one more comment that you want? She's just waving goodbye. Are you just waving goodbye? Okay, goodbye, Shannon. Carla, can you do us the favor, please, and read item 742?
Certainly. Proclaim September 15 to October 15, 2020 to be Latinx Heritage Month.
Well, first of all, everybody, thank you for your patience. Our council had a fabulous and robust discussion, so we appreciate your patience. Yesterday, September 15th, marked the beginning of Latinx Heritage Month. Every year, I look forward to bringing this proclamation forth with Commissioner Fritz and the City of Portland Latinx PDX Affinity Group. I want to thank Commissioner Fritz in particular and the employee leaders of this group for your work on this and your dedication to ensuring that we utilize this proclamation as a platform to not only acknowledge the contributions and the achievements of Latinx employees within the City of Portland, but the Latinx community throughout the city as well. The City of Portland recognizes the Latinx community during this month-long celebration, and every day, the contributions and impact of our Latinx neighbors, the contributions they make are invaluable to the fabric of this community. I look forward to your program today and to reading the thoughtful proclamation that you've put together. I'm going to ask Commissioner Fritz to read that proclamation when the time comes. So Commissioner Fritz, take it away.
The
Thank you,
interpreter
Mayor.
requests an opportunity to interpret. I do have the
was just
remarks
going to
here.
say that.
All right.
I was just about to introduce you. Thank you so much.
So may
thank you to our interpreter. I will introduce you during my remarks, but I would like to ask you to translate what the mayor just said, or to interpret what the mayor just said. Thank you.
Yes. Los puntos de cierre son del alcalde Wheeler. Ayer, el 15 de septiembre, marcó el principio de la herencia hispana, del mes de herencia hispana cada año. Yo estoy esperando que podamos hacer esa proclamación con el comisionado Fritz y con la ciudad de Portland, con el grupo de afinidad latina de Portland, gracias a la comisionada Fritz y a los líderes de este grupo por su trabajo en su dedicatoria para asegurar de que nosotros utilizaremos esta proclamación como una plataforma y no solo para reconocer las contribuciones y todos los desempeños de los empleados latinos en la ciudad de Portland, pero también en la comunidad latina de Portland también, ya que la ciudad de Portland reconoce a la comunidad latina durante este mes y esta celebración que dura un mes, cada día con las contribuciones y el impacto de nuestros vecinos latinos que son invaluables al tejido que compone nuestra ciudad. Yo estoy también buscando su programa el día de hoy y quiero ver cuál es la proclamación muy que han imaginado para poder tenerlo. Por favor, comisionada Fritz, empiece.
Thank you. And first, I thank our Latinx PDX City Employees Affinity Group for again bringing the proclamation to Council. We have a short program that will include translation of all statements, including Council's, which is a first for a Council item to my knowledge, as was just seen by a bit of a confusion. Colleagues, if you have statements, please pause after each paragraph to allow for translation. Thanks to Sophia Molina from Mindful Link Resources for providing interpretation services today. Mayor Wheeler has asked that I will read the English version of the proclamation. Then Mariana Lomato from the Portland Bureau of Transportation will read the Spanish version.
Quiero agradecerles a todo el grupo de afinidad de empleados de Portland, de la comunidad de los latinos, una vez para tener esta proclamación frente al Consejo. Tenemos un programa muy corto que va a incluir la traducción de todas las declaraciones, incluyendo de los consejos, que es la primera vez que se va a hacer hasta donde yo sé. Colegas, si tienen ustedes declaraciones, por favor pausen después de cada párrafo para permitir que haya una traducción. Gracias a Sofía Molina de Mindful Link Resources por proveer interpretación y sus servicios el día de hoy. Le voy a pedir al alcalde Wheeler que por favor lea la versión en inglés de la proclamación y después a Mariana Lomanto del Departamento de Transporte, quien leerá la versión en español.
Thank you so much. And that's how we're going to do it, colleagues. It is now my pleasure to pass the microphone first back to the interpreter and then to Yesenia Carrillo, my policy advisor, communications director, and constituent services specialist, who will guide us through the program.
Muy bien, y así es como lo vamos a efectuar. Muchas gracias. Ahora será mi placer pasarle el micrófono primero a la intérprete y después a Yesenia Carrillo, quien es la consejera de políticas, la directora de comunicaciones y la especialista de servicios del constituyente, quien nos guiará a través del programa.
Thank you, Commissioner Fritz. My name is Yesenia Carrillo, and I am a proud team member of Commissioner Fritz's office, a proud member of Latinx PDX, and a proud daughter of immigrants with roots in Mexico and Guatemala. Today, we have an interpreter present, thank you, Sophia, who will be helping us translate for our Spanish-speaking community members. The Latinx PDX Affinity Group is committed to developing a professional network in order to promote professional advancement and mentoring opportunities for all Latinx city employees, as well as to help recruit Latinos for employment within the city. Latinx PDX advocates for strengthening community inclusiveness through public outreach towards policies, plans, and investments, and highlight contributions made by Latinx culture. Lastly, Latinx PDX collaborates with Latinx community organizations and institutions for shared goals and outcomes.
Gracias, comisionada Fritz. Mi nombre es Yesenia Carrillo y soy un miembro muy orgulloso de la oficina de la comisionada Fritz. Soy también miembro de la comunidad latina de Portland y también soy una hija muy orgullosa de inmigrantes que tiene raíces en México y en Guatemala. Hoy tenemos a una intérprete presente, gracias a Sofía, quien va a hacer la habilitación de poder ayudarnos a traducir para que tengamos para nuestros miembros de la comunidad que hablan español. El grupo de afinidad latina de PDX o Latinex está comprometido a poder desarrollar una red profesional de latinos para poder promover avances profesionales y que haya oportunidades de tutela para todos los empleados de la ciudad que sean latinos. Y también nosotros ayudamos a poder reclutar latinos para que tengan empleo. Este grupo, Latinx PDX, va a abogar para poder hacer mucho mejor la inclusividad de la comunidad a través de alcanzar del público con políticas, planes, inversiones y algunas contribuciones que se hagan en la cultura de los latinos o Latinx. Por último, Latinx PDX va a colaborar con las organizaciones comunitarias latinas y con las instituciones para poder compartir metas y sus desempeños o metas, goles.
Latinx PDX stands in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color in our city, and works alongside them as we strive for social and racial justice in Portland and our country. We are committed to addressing anti-Blackness and Indigenous sovereignty in our institutions and in our community, and working towards a place of understanding, reciprocity, empathy, and justice. As we celebrate today, we also honor the lived experiences of Latinx and all BIPOC people who have endured the brunt of COVID-19, white supremacy, environmental racism, economic injustice, inaccessible healthcare, and discrimination. Today, we think of our Latinx essential workers, agricultural workers, and our nurses and doctors who, despite COVID-19 and hazardous air quality, ensure that our community's basic needs are met. Thank you.
Latinx PDX está en solidaridad con las personas que son negras, indígenas y de otras personas de color en nuestra ciudad y también trabaja al lado de lo que nosotros tratamos de buscar en justicia social y racial en Portland y en nuestra nación. Estamos comprometidos para poder hablar y enfrentar los problemas de antinegros y de indígenas con la soberanía de nuestras instituciones y en nuestra comunidad y trabajar a través de un lugar de entendimiento, reciprocidad, empatía y justicia. Ya que hoy celebramos esto, también estamos dando y honrando las experiencias que han vivido todos los latinos y todas las personas BIPOC, por sus siglas en inglés, que son negros, indígenas o personas de color, que han tenido que aguantar toda consecuencia de COVID-19, de la supremacía blanca, del racismo ambiental, de la injusticia económica, de que no haya un programa de salud accesible y de la discriminación. Hoy pensamos que nuestros trabajadores agricultores latinos y las enfermeras o enfermeros y doctores o doctoras en el servicio público de la salud, a pesar del COVID-19 y de las condiciones que son muy inseguras del aire, se aseguran que nuestra comunidad tenga las necesidades básicas cubiertas. Muchas gracias.
Today, we have members from our affinity group, Vanessa Micale and Mariana Lomanto, and guest, Anthony Velez, President and founder of Oregon Latinx Leadership Network, and Adrián Reyes, Work Center Director at VOS. First, we have Vanessa.
Hoy tenemos los miembros de nuestro grupo de afinidad. Tenemos a la señorita Vanessa Micale, quien es la coordinadora de participación pública de la Oficina de Transporte. Y tenemos también a Adrián Reyes de Voz. Y primero tenemos a las personas que son dirigentes de Latinx Leadership Network, que es la red de liderazgo latino. Vanessa Micale empieza.
Greetings, Mayor, Commissioners, colleagues, and community members. My name is Vanessa Micale. I am the Public Involvement Coordinator at the Portland Bureau of Transportation. I use she, her pronouns. I identify as mixed race, Uruguayan American, Latinx, and the daughter of an immigrant.
Buenas tardes a todos los dirigentes que tenemos aquí. Estoy identificándome, soy la coordinadora pública, mi nombre es Vanessa Micale. Estoy identificándome como uruguaya. Interpreter would just like if you could, I do not have any of your remarks written down, so I really need short pieces of information together because I have no information about you. Please, thank you.
¿Quieres que siga? Do you want me to continue?
Sí, me gustaría que continuara. You could continue. I just need a smaller chunks of information, please, because I have nothing written about you and I need to write it down when you talk.
Okay, perfect.
Cuando habla usted, tengo que escribirlo.
Está perfecto. Gracias. Thank you.
Gracias a usted.
It is my honor to invite you to Gobiernos, Government para Ti, a Zoom bilingual webinar in Spanish with English closed captions.
Estoy muy complacida de invitarlos a Gobiernos para Ti. Esto es un webinario que está disponible en su idioma con subtítulos.
Sponsored by PBOT in collaboration with an event planning team of members of Latinx PDX.
Está colaborándose es una reunión de Pivot también con la Asociación de Latinx de PDX que estamos mencionando.
The event is taking place on Monday, September 21st, 2020 at 12 noon for a lunch hour.
Estamos haciendo el evento el 21 de septiembre, que es un lunes, a las 12 de mediodía durante la hora del almuerzo.
We have an inspiring lineup of Latinx panelists from regional government sectors.
Tenemos unos panelistas que es muy inspirador, que tiene un grupo de panelistas que son de diferentes asociaciones gubernamentales.
Who will share perspectives on Latinx community challenges, resilience, and solidarity building to stand against anti-Blackness.
Vamos a tener un panel que va a hablar acerca de la comunidad de latinos y que va a ser muy sólido hablando acerca de los problemas que existen también con personas de color, específicamente afroamericanos o negros.
The panelists in attendance will be Eduardo Ramos from City of Tigard.
Algunos de los panelistas que estarán atendiendo van a ser Eduardo Ramos de la ciudad de Tigard.
Gloria Pinzón Marín from Metro.
Gloria Pinzón Marín de la Asociación Metro.
Jairo Ríos Campos from City of Fairview.
Jairo Ríos Campos de la ciudad de Fairview.
María Magallón from Clackamas County.
María Magallón, que viene del condado de Clackamas.
Shay Flaherty Bettine from Prosper Portland.
Shade Flaherty Martín de Prosper Portland, una asociación Prosperidad Portland.
And Yolanda Sanchez from City of Portland.
Y Yolanda Sánchez de la ciudad de Portland.
This event is free and open to all. Registration is required in advance.
Este evento es gratuito y está abierto para cualquier persona, pero se necesita registrarse por adelantado.
We hope to see you there. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Esperamos verlos ahí y muchas gracias por su tiempo esta tarde.
Next, we have Anthony Velez from the Oregon Latinx Leadership Network.
A continuación tenemos a Anthony Bellis, que es el presidente del Oregon Latinx Leadership Network, que es la red de liderazgo de los latinos en Oregón.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon, buenas tardes, señor alcalde.
And commissioners. It is, as a grandson and son and former farm worker, it is truly an honor to be here with you all today.
Estoy a todos los comisionados también es un honor como un nieto y como un hijo estar verdaderamente orgulloso de estar aquí presente el día de hoy con ustedes.
Public servants have a special place in my heart as I currently serve on the State Board of Education and have been chair, was chair the last 2 years.
Por el ser servidor público, para mí tiene una gran importancia, ya que he estado yo ahorita en el Comité de Educación del Estado en los últimos 2 años.
And I was the first Latino ever elected to the Woodburn School Board and only the second city councilor.
Y soy el primer latino que se eligió para el comité de la escolar de Woodburn. And what was your other charge, Mr. Bellis?
School board or city councilor.
Y también soy concejal de la ciudad.
My grandparents arrived here in 1946 as farm workers, and we've been in Woodburn for 5 generations now.
Mis abuelos llegaron aquí como personas que trabajaban en agricultura en 1946 y ya somos la 5ª generación que está en Woodburn.
I'm here today as the founder of the Oregon Latinx Leadership Network, which consists of over 80 community-based organizations and hundreds and thousands of Latino leaders across Oregon.
Estoy aquí para hablar acerca de la red de liderazgos de los latinos de Oregón o Latinx de Oregón y que está compuesta por 80 diferentes bases comunitarias y cientos de personas en la organización.
OYN, as we call it, really started literally me sitting here in the seat that I'm in right now.
Hoy, como empezamos, literalmente yo estaba sentado aquí en este asiento en el que me encuentro en este momento.
Every day I get at 4 in the morning, I get to hear cars and people going to work.
Todos los días a las 4 de la mañana empiezo a escuchar a las personas y los coches que se están yendo para empezar su trabajo.
And every day I get to see those same people coming home about 7 or 8 at night.
Y todos los días veo a esas mismas personas que regresan a la casa como a las 7 u 8 de la noche.
So when COVID hit and being a lifelong activist in Woodburn, I knew that the Latino community of Oregon, if we as Latinos didn't come together and help the Latino community, with all due respect to our allies, nobody would.
Entonces, cuando empezó el COVID y siendo una persona activista durante toda mi vida para la comunidad de Woodburn, yo me di cuenta que si no veníamos a ayudar los mismos latinos a nuestra comunidad latina, nadie nos iba a ayudar.
So we represent all of Latino, all 500,000 plus Latinos, all 77,000 plus undocumented Latinx community members across Oregon.
Así que nosotros representamos a más de 500,000 latinos que se encuentran en Oregón y también a más de 77,000 indocumentados que están en la región.
From Afro-Latinos to indigenous Mesoamerican Latinos and everybody.
Desde los afrolatinos hasta los indígenas latinos que están desde Mesoamérica o de la mitad de América.
So as we came together, we put the following community members in our minds, which are the undocumented, the immigrant.
Así que nosotros entonces pusimos a los siguientes miembros de la comunidad que estaban presentes para nosotros, los indocumentados.
The immigrants, the hungry, the poor, the homeless.
Los inmigrantes, los que tenían hambre, los pobres, los que estaban indigentes.
The sick, the incarcerated, and the voiceless.
Los que estaban encarcelados, los que estaban sin voz, los que estaban enfermos.
And now with the police brutality and the criminal justice system and the fires, it's taking it to another level, our work.
Y ahora con el sistema en el cual está el sistema penal como se encuentra y con los incendios, esto se está trasladando a otro nivel completamente.
So our work has taken on meaning that I could have never imagined and the importance, especially during this time.
Así que nuestro trabajo se está volviendo de importancia muy crucial, especialmente durante estos momentos.
So it's really simple what we're doing. We're giving voice to the voiceless.
Es simplemente lo que estamos haciendo es darle voz a las personas que no tienen voz.
So what we've done is we've done a couple of major things. One is we created a call to action that we sent to the federal, state, and county public elected officials to bring our issues to the forefront.
Entonces lo que hicimos fue hacer un llamado de acción que mandamos a los empleados federales, estatales y del condado para que podamos tener algo firme en que desarrollar.
And we're asking for three major things.
Estamos pidiendo tres cosas principalmente.
The equitable distribution of resources.
Que se puedan distribuir los recursos en forma equitativa.
Equitable representation in leadership roles.
Que en los roles de representación y liderazgo haya también representación equitativa.
And a statewide comprehensive Latinx communication plan.
Y un plan de comunicación para los latinos que sea a través del Estado.
So since March, literally from this seat, we've started hosting town halls every Wednesday from 12 to 1. And we've had people such as Senator Merkley, Governor Brown, and most state agency leaders.
Hemos tenido desde hace un rato, hemos tenido de 12 a 1 cada miércoles, hemos efectuado juntas de la ciudad en la cual hemos tenido también representación de la gobernadora Brown y del senador Merkley.
I think a sentiment that we all feel as being the largest ethnic minority in Oregon is that we are the invisible majority.
Creo que un sentimiento que tenemos es de que aún siendo la minoría más grande en todo Oregón, somos la minoría más silenciosa.
We represent 13.4% of the state population and over 23% of the K-12 students in Oregon. But if you looked at the leaders who run Oregon in the public and private sector, you would know it.
Nosotros somos de la población el 13.4% y de las escuelas desde el kinder hasta el 12º grado es 23% de los alumnos. Pero si ustedes vieran a los líderes que están representando al gobierno, no sabrían ustedes qué tal es el porcentaje.
Of 197 school districts across the state of Oregon, I think I can count the number of Latinx I know I can count, and I'd have to take a few fingers away of the number of superintendents.
De los 197 distritos escolares que tenemos en Oregón, yo sé que puedo contar con la mano de una mano, eso, con mis dedos, yo puedo contar cuáles son las personas que están a cargo.
But I'm here today to talk about our strength and our resilience.
Pero estoy aquí para hablar acerca de nuestra fuerza y nuestra resiliencia.
And we struck a chord. This is a movement now, and our movement is a big wave, and it's not going to stop anymore. We're not going backwards as a Latino community of Oregon, period.
No nos vamos a echar para atrás como la comunidad latina de Oregón. Hemos llegado a un punto en el cual nosotros vamos a progresar y no vamos a echarnos para atrás.
I mentioned that we host town hall today, and I want to tell you a really quick story.
Mencioné que habíamos tenido una junta en la ciudad y quiero contar una anécdota muy rápida.
So we had Maria, who is a parent from Talent, Oregon, on our town hall today.
Tuvimos a una madre de familia llamada María en la junta presente el día de hoy y ella es de Talent, Oregon.
She's part of a local board and they have 12 members and 6 members today are homeless.
Ella es parte de un comité de la ciudad en la cual hay 12 miembros y 6 de esos miembros están indigentes, viviendo en la calle sin hogar.
her home burned, the computers burned, her clothes, pictures, anything that you could imagine that they had, this humble woman is gone.
Se le quemó la casa, se le quemó su ropa, se le quemó su computadora, cualquier cosa que ustedes puedan imaginar que era propiedad de esta mujer humilde, ya está desaparecida y se le fue.
But with all her loss, she talked about people in her community who were actually undocumented and how it was actually her concern for them more than her.
Y por todo lo que tenemos con las personas que hay en su comunidad, ella estuvo hablando acerca de los indocumentados y lo que ella estaba preocupada era acerca de las personas que estaban indocumentadas.
So people that have lived in Talent and Phoenix, Oregon for over 20, 30 years, but have been undocumented, have no access to resources. And that was what she talked about. She didn't talk about herself. She talked about the others.
Y en lugar de hablar de ella estuvo hablando de otras personas, hablando acerca de las personas que viven en Talent o en Phoenix, Oregón, y que han estado indigentes y que no tienen absolutamente nada.
I think she represents the spirit of all Latinos, Latinx people, and what Oregon Latinx Leadership Network is about.
Y yo creo que ella representa el espíritu de todos los latinos, de los Latinx que hay en Oregón y lo que debería de ser la causa y la verdadera razón para hacer para la red latina de Oregón.
And that is service to others.
Y eso implica servicio a los demás.
That's it. It's simple.
Eso es todo. Es simple.
Putting those who have always been in the back of the line or in the back to the front. That's my message to all of you today.
Poniendo a todos los que siempre han estado atrás en la línea, poniéndolos al frente. Ese es el mensaje que yo tengo para ustedes el día de hoy.
That's the spirit of Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month. That's the spirit of the Latinx community of Oregon. I know that spirit lives in this meeting, and I want to leave you with that.
Ese es el espíritu de la herencia latina de Oregón, ese es el espíritu de la comunidad latina que tenemos aquí en Oregón y entonces los quiero dejar a ustedes con ese pensamiento. Gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you, Tony. Next, we have Adrián Reyes. He is the Work Center Director at VOS.
Gracias. A continuación tenemos a Adrián Reyes. Él es el director en VOS.
Buenas tardes a todos, estimado alcalde, consejo de la ciudad de Portland y presentes.
Good afternoon, everybody. For the council and for everybody in the city of Portland.
Mi nombre es Adrián Reyes, director del Centro Jornalero Martin Luther King Jr.
My name is Adrián Reyes. I am the director of the Martin Luther King Jr. Day Worker Center.
Que es parte del proyecto de educación de derechos laborales VOS.
Which is part of the educational program from VOS.
A nombre de los jornaleros y las jornaleras de VOS, quiero agradecerles la oportunidad que nos dan de compartir el orgullo de nuestra herencia latina en este evento.
In name of all the day workers that we have in VOS, I would like to thank for the presence and the attention that they're giving us for this event of our heritage.
En VOS, mujeres y hombres, blancos, negros y mestizos, de la diversidad sexual y personas con discapacidad y personas sin hogar, formamos esta comunidad.
In VOS, we have a community that is shaped by women, Black people, men, handicapped people, and they are all together in this community as a part.
Nuestro espacio de trabajo nace entre el Boulevard Martin Luther King Jr. y la calle Everett en esta ciudad.
Our space to work is born at between the MLK Boulevard and Everett Boulevard or Everett Avenue.
Nosotros somos los vestidos en botas, pantalón de mezclilla, camisa de manga larga, gorra y mochila con nuestras herramientas básicas.
We are the ones that are dressed in jeans with our long-sleeved shirts, with boots, with our caps, and we have a backpack full of our most elementary or basic tools.
Unidos por el trabajo y las ganas de llevar comida a nuestros hogares, desde el 2008, este centro nos ha dado oportunidades económicas.
We have been united since 2008 by this center because we are willing and we have the desire of taking food and providing for our families.
Pero también es un espacio de organización y defensoría de nuestros derechos laborales y humanos.
But it is also a space where we can organize and we can defend our rights as workers and our human rights.
Nuestras historias migrantes son diversas, pero por suerte del destino compartimos el mismo espacio y tiempo.
We have very diverse migrant stories, but because of luck and because of destiny, we are sharing the same space.
Portland nos ha acogido con bondad. En esta ciudad muchos hemos encontrado trabajo.
Portland has received us with kindness. In this city, many of us have found work.
El trabajo nos ha dado la oportunidad de construir nuestro hogar, para algunos tener y ver crecer a sus hijos, hacer amigos y hacer comunidad.
For the work here in Portland has helped us to have a home. It has facilitated us seeing our children grow and to have friendships.
Durante estos procesos hemos experimentado retos, hemos combatido la discriminación, el robo del salario, la falta de oportunidades económicas.
We have had a lot of different challenges. We have been combating and fighting against discrimination, the robbery of our salary or an unjust salary. ¿Qué dijo lo último, por favor?
La falta de oportunidades económicas.
And for the lack of economic opportunities.
En especial para las personas con discapacidad y adultos mayores.
Especially those that are for the people that are handicapped or for seniors.
También hemos combatido la supremacía blanca, las deportaciones, el miedo a ser separados de nuestras familias.
We have also been fighting the deportations, the white supremacy, and all the fear that we have of being separated from our families.
Internamente nos hemos fortalecido para ser una comunidad libre de acoso sexual.
Internally, we have grown stronger so that we can be a community that is free of sexual harassment.
Libre de violencia, inequidad de género, antinegrura.
And free of violence, free of gender violence and anti-blackness.
Y también libre de discriminación hacia la comunidad LGBTQ.
And we have also been free of making any kind of discrimination against the LGBTQ community.
Los jornaleros, empleadores de jornaleros, colaboradores, voluntarios y personal de voz queremos esto.
The day workers, the employers that use day workers, all the personnel and us, we want this. All the employees of Voice or de Voz want this.
Vivimos con responsabilidad una pandemia que nos ha hecho más fuertes.
We live responsibly with a pandemic that has made us stronger.
Hemos recibido comida, recursos económicos, ropa y acceso a servicios médicos.
We have received food, access to medical help, and many other resources.
Y estamos muy agradecidos con la comunidad, los gobiernos y las organizaciones.
And we are very grateful with the communities, with the governments, and different associations.
También nos unimos al dolor de nuestra comunidad afrodescendiente.
We are also being solidarity, getting together and being feeling solidarity with the community that is descendants of Afro-Americans.
Y queremos una ciudad justa para todos sin importar nuestro color de piel.
And we would like to have a fair city, not regarding the color of our skin.
Estamos también con las familias desplazadas y las personas afectadas por los incendios forestales.
We are also supporting the displaced families and all the people that have had to move because of the fires.
Y en nuestra memoria permanecerán las vidas perdidas.
And we will have in our memory all the lost lives.
Hemos cerrado el centro por la pandemia y ahora por los incendios.
We have closed the center for now because of the forest fires and because of the pandemic.
Y aunque ha sido temporal, esto significa pérdidas económicas para las familias.
And even though it's a temporary situation, it signifies loss, economic loss for all the families.
A pesar de esto, en un sentido de celebración,
even though in a celebration sentiment,
el idioma y la cultura nos unen como hermanos.
The language and the culture unify us as brothers.
Y nuestra historia nos recuerda de dónde venimos y quiénes somos.
And our history reminds us of where we come from and who we are.
Apreciamos el apoyo incondicional que hemos recibido del pueblo bueno de los Estados Unidos.
We appreciate the unconditional support that we have received from the people of the United States.
Tenemos también siempre presente el apoyo que la ciudad de Portland nos ha dado a lo largo de los años.
We have also in mind all the support that the city of Portland has given us throughout the years.
Y estamos profundamente agradecidos con su generosidad.
And we are profoundly thankful for their generosity.
No me queda más que desearles felices fiestas patrias.
All I want and I have left is to wish you very happy national holidays.
Y de parte de todos y todas los jornaleros migrantes de Portland.
And from all of the day workers and the migrant workers from Portland.
Les decimos muchas gracias por tomarnos en cuenta.
I want to thank you very much for keeping us in mind.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. This concludes the program of guest speakers. Commissioner Fritz, now if you will do us the honors of reading the proclamation in English, and then we will have Mariana Lomanto read the proclamation in Spanish, and then we'll wrap up with council's remarks. Thank you all.
Gracias, Adrián. Esto concluye el programa de los visitantes, de los invitados que participaron hablando. Por favor, alcalde Wheeler, si puede hacernos el honor de leer la proclamación en inglés y después tendremos a Mariana Lomanto, quien va a leer la proclamación en español. Entonces podemos terminar con los comentarios del Consejo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Before Commissioner Fritz reads the proclamation, I just want to say Commissioner Hardesty is having some problems logging back on, but she's here on the phone, so she is part of this conversation. I just want you to know that.
Antes de que continuemos, hay una comisionada que ahorita está teniendo problema volver a entrar al sistema, así que solamente estamos esperando que pueda ella anexarse y entonces continuaremos.
Gracias, Vanessa, Anthony, and Adrian. Gracias.
Thank you, Vanessa, Adrian, and Anthony. A ver si pueden entender lo que estoy diciendo en español.
Sophia, you are very skilled, and I think if I was to have translation in real time, that I would get to learn your wonderful language.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I will read the proclamation. Whereas Portland community members self-identify as Latinx, Latino, Latina, Hispanic, Chicano, Chicana, Indigenous, or with their country of origin or heritage, and whereas in September 2018, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary recognize the word Latinx, which is defined as of or relating to or marked by Latin American heritage and used as a gender-neutral alternative to Latino or Latina. And whereas the rich tapestry of Latinx culture is multiracial, multicultural, and multilingual, and whereas many Latinx people trace their roots to the indigenous peoples of the Americas, European settler colonists, Africans who were kidnapped, transferred, trafficked, and enslaved in the Americas, and Asians who immigrated to the Americas. And whereas 1 in 4 Latin Americans self-identify as people of African descent. In 2017, there were more than 3 million Afro-Latinos living in the United States. And whereas the Latinx population in the United States represents people with origins from the Caribbean, Central America, North America, South America, and all over the world. According to the United Nations, there are 33 countries and 15 territories in Latin America and the Caribbean. And whereas the Latinx community has been integral to the progress of the United States for generations, even as they have grappled with relative invisibility, outright rejection of their place in our society, and internal struggles about their own identity in this country. And whereas roughly 70,000 individuals, including people from Latin America, have been detained by Immigration Customs Enforcement, or ICE, during the COVID-19 pandemic. These are our neighbors and fellow community members, immigrants, asylum seekers, and refugees seeking safety, opportunity, and freedom in our country. And whereas Latinx people, along with Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, are part of the essential workforce keeping our city and nation operating during the COVID-19 pandemic. They drive our community as workers, owners, and entrepreneurs. They are the force of the social and political change as advocates, activists, and elected officials. They innovate as teachers, scientists, and engineers. They enrich the arts as poets, storytellers, actors, and directors. They ensure our health and basic human needs as grocery store workers, truck drivers, agricultural workers, day laborers, sanitation workers, childcare providers, caretakers, nurses, doctors, and so many others. And whereas the Latinx community in the metro area makes up 11% of the total population, but 37% of COVID-19 recorded cases. In Multnomah County alone, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC, represent 40% of COVID-19 cases, despite totaling only 30% of the population. BIPOC people are more likely to be essential workers during this time. They are the same communities that are more likely to experience severe symptoms and hospitalization because of higher rates of underlying chronic conditions stemming from years of unequal access to healthcare and systemic barriers to healthy jobs, homes, and lifestyles. And whereas, according to the latest US Census, the Latinx community makes up about 9.7% of Portland's total population. This group is young, diverse, and continues to grow in our city and nation, accounting for more than half the nation's population growth since 2010. And whereas Latinx people currently make up 7.1% of the City of Portland's workforce, to help connect more Latinx people to city jobs and to support them throughout their careers with the city, the Latinx PDX City Employee Affinity Group was reestablished in 2014. Latinx PDX has reached over 100 employees and continues to grow. And whereas Latinx PDX city employees stand in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities and marginalized groups who face discrimination and underrepresentation in our city. Latinx PDX city employees are committed to continue working in unity with our bureaus to dismantle the systems of oppression that make civic engagement and participation difficult for BIPOC communities. Now, therefore, Ted Wheeler, the Mayor of the City of Portland, Oregon, and I, Commissioner Amanda Fritz, do hereby proclaim September 15th to October 15th, 2020 to be Latinx Heritage Month and encourage all residents to learn, reflect, and celebrate the historical and present contributions that Latinx people have on our community.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we have Mariana Lomanto, who will be reading the proclamation in Spanish.
A continuación tenemos a Mariana Lomanto, quien va a leer la proclamación en español.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Mariana Lomanto. I am a legislative assistant in the Portland Bureau of Transportation, and I'm also a proud member of the Latinx PDX Affinity Group. Mi nombre es Mariana Lomanto. Buenas tardes. Soy una asistente legislativa de la Oficina de Transporte de la Ciudad de Portland y también soy miembro del grupo Latinx PDX. Considerando que los miembros de la comunidad de Portland se identifican a sí mismos como Latinx, Latino, Latina, Hispano, Hispana, Chicano, Chicana, Indígena o con su país de origen o ascendencia. Y considerando que en septiembre del 2018 el diccionario Merriam-Webster reconoció la palabra Latinx, la cual se define como de relacionado con o marcado por ascendencia latinoamericana y usando como una alternativa de género neutral a latino o latina. Y considerando que el tapiz de la cultura Latinx es multirracial, multicultural y multilingüe. Y considerando que muchas personas Latinx tienen sus raíces en los pueblos indígenas de las Américas, pobladores, colonizadores europeos, africanos que fueron secuestrados y traficados y esclavizados en las Américas, y asiáticos que emigraron a las Américas. Y considerando que 1 de cada 4 latinoamericanos se identifica a sí mismo como persona de ascendencia africana. En el 2017 había más de 3 millones afrolatinos viviendo en los Estados Unidos. Y considerando que la población Latinx en los Estados Unidos representa a las personas con orígenes en el Caribe, Centroamérica, Norteamérica, Suramérica y alrededor del mundo. De acuerdo con las Naciones Unidas, existen 33 países y 15 territorios en Latinoamérica y el Caribe. Y considerando que la comunidad Latinx ha sido integral al progreso de los Estados Unidos por generaciones, aun cuando esta comunidad ha enfrentado invisibilidad, rechazo de su lugar en nuestra sociedad y luchas internas sobre su propia identidad en este país. Y considerando que aproximadamente 70,000 individuos, incluyendo personas de Latinoamérica, han sido detenidas por el Servicio de Inmigración y Control de Aduanas, ICE por sus siglas en inglés, durante la pandemia del COVID-19. Estos son nuestros vecinos y miembros de nuestra comunidad, inmigrantes, solicitantes de asilo y refugiados, buscando seguridad, oportunidad y libertad en nuestro país. Considerando que las personas Latinx, junto con las comunidades negras, indígenas y gente de color, son parte de la fuerza de trabajo esencial que mantiene funcionando a nuestra ciudad y nación durante la pandemia del COVID-19. Ellas impulsan la economía, como son trabajadores, propietarios y empresarios. Ellas son la fuerza del cambio social y político, como son defensoras, activistas, funcionarios. Ellas crean innovaciones, como son maestros, científicos, ingenieros. Ellas enriquecen las artes, como poetas, narradores orales, actores y directores. Ellas muestran necesidades básicas y de salud, como empleados de supermercados, choferes de camiones, trabajadores agrícolas, jornaleros, trabajadores sanitarios, proveedores de cuidados de niños, cuidadores personales, enfermeros, doctores y muchos otros. Y considerando que la comunidad Latinx en el área metropolitana constituye el 11% de la población, pero el 37% de los casos de COVID-19 registrados. Solamente en el condado de Multnomah, las personas negras, indígenas y gente de color BIPOC, por sus siglas en inglés, representan el 40% de los casos del COVID-19, a pesar de ser solamente el 30% de la población. Las personas BIPOC tienen más probabilidad de ser trabajadores esenciales. Estas son las mismas comunidades que tienen más probabilidad de experimentar síntomas y una hospitalización debido a los altos porcentajes de condiciones crónicas subyacentes. Condiciones que resultan de tener por años un acceso desigual a servicios de salud y barreras sistemáticas a los empleos y viviendas de estilo de vida saludables. Considerando que de acuerdo al censo más reciente en los Estados Unidos, la comunidad Latinx constituye aproximadamente 9.7% de toda la población de Portland. Este es un grupo joven, diverso, y sigue creciendo en nuestra ciudad y nación. Y representa más de la mitad del crecimiento de la población de la nación del 2010. Considerando que las personas Latinx actualmente constituyen el 7.1% de la fuerza de trabajo de la ciudad de Portland para ayudar a conectar a las personas Latinx con los empleados de la ciudad y apoyarles durante sus carreras, el grupo de afinidad de empleados de la ciudad PDX fue restablecido en 2014. Latinx PDX ha llegado a más de 100 empleados y sigue creciendo. Los empleados de la ciudad Latinx se unen en solidaridad con las comunidades de personas negras, indígenas y gente de color y los grupos marginalizados que enfrentan discriminación y poca representación en nuestra ciudad. Los empleados de la ciudad Latinx PDX se comprometen a trabajar unidos con nuestras agencias para desmantelar los sistemas de opresión y racismo que hacen que el compromiso y participación cívica sea difícil para la comunidad BIPOC. Y considerando que yo, Ted Wheeler, alcalde de la ciudad de Portland de Oregon, por medio de la presente, proclamo que del 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre del 2020, mes de la herencia Latinx. Y yo aliento a todos los residentes a aprender, a reflexionar y celebrar las contribuciones históricas y presentes que las personas Latinx hacen en nuestra comunidad. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Mariana. It's just such a difficult task to read that long proclamation in Spanish, so thank you, Mariana, for doing that for us. That concludes the proclamation part of this. Mayor Wheeler, if you want to start us off with your closing remarks, and I just remind the rest of the council to please stop after each sentence or phrase to allow for translation. And thank you so much for rolling with us with this and trying this bilingual proclamation today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here today and sharing with us.
Antes que nada, quiero agradecerles a todos el que ustedes hayan estado con nosotros aquí.
We value and appreciate the work and the contributions that you make on a daily basis.
Nosotros apreciamos y tenemos muy en cuenta el valor de sus contribuciones que hacen ustedes a diario.
Thank you for reminding us of the work that we still need to do to address the inequities that so often place burdens on Latinx people and the BIPOC community.
Gracias por recordarnos del trabajo que todavía necesitamos hacer y que también podamos ponerle atención a la inequidad que tan desproporcionadamente afecta a la gente latina y a las comunidades BIPOC, por siglas en inglés.
Thank you to our city employees and community partners for your continued work, service, and dedication to Portland.
Gracias a los empleados de nuestra ciudad y a los que son también asociados de la comunidad por su trabajo continuo, por su servicio y dedicación a nuestra ciudad.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fritz, do you want to go next?
Señorita Fritz, ¿quiere usted continuar ahora, comisionada?
Thank you, Mayor. I was hoping to go last, so if others have comments, I'd like to invite you to put your hands up.
All right, very good. Commissioner Daly.
Comisionada Daly, en lugar, la comisionada Fritz dice que ella querría poner la mano hacia arriba.
Thank you, Mayor. In the interest of time, I'm going to keep my remarks very brief and post my full statement on Facebook.
Para poder ayudar a que ahorremos tiempo, solamente voy a poner mis comentarios muy brevemente y pondré mi declaración en completo en Facebook.
So for now, I'll just thank Mayor Wheeler, Commissioner Fritz, and everyone who participated in the presentation today.
Así que por hoy nada más quiero agradecerle al alcalde Wheeler, a la comisionada Fritz y todas las personas que participaron el día de hoy.
And special thanks to Yesenia Carrillo in Commissioner Fritz's office for coordinating this year's proclamation.
Y especialmente a Yesenia Carrillo y a la comisionada Fritz por poder coordinar esta proclamación el día de hoy.
And finally, to Vanessa, Mariana, and all the speakers who were here with us today to present on Latinx Heritage Month.
Y a Vanessa, a Mariana y a todas las personas que participaron hablando para poder ser parte de lo que es nuestro mes de herencia hispana.
Thank you.
Gracias.
I could have said that in Spanish, sorry.
Pude haber dicho eso en español también, lo siento.
Gracias, yeah.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Comisionada Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioner Fritz, for presenting this proclamation today.
Gracias, alcalde, y gracias a la comisionada Fritz por presentar esta proclamación el día de hoy.
I want to give you my apologies. I was gone, but only because the computer kicked me out, but I was determined to get back before the end of this presentation.
Perdonen que no estuve ausente un ratito, lo que pasa es que la computadora me sacó, pero estaba yo decidida a que iba a estar aquí de nuevo al final de la presentación.
I want to also say thank you for being people on the front line, our frontline workers every single day, no matter what the conditions are.
Quiero también agradecerle mucho a las personas que siempre están al frente en primera línea de cualquier cosa, no importando qué es lo que pasa, están siempre al frente de todo.
The pandemic has taught us that we're all interconnected.
La pandemia nos ha enseñado que todos estamos interconectados.
If I'm sick, you will be sick too.
Si yo estoy enferma, tú también vas a estar enferma.
If I am lacking access to quality housing,
si yo no tengo acceso a una vivienda digna o de calidad,
living wage jobs,
y que no, estamos desperdiciando trabajos,
and opportunities for my children to thrive,
y no hay oportunidades para que mis propios hijos puedan salir adelante y destaquen,
we all suffer from that same deficit.
Entonces todos sufrimos del mismo déficit.
I appreciate the recognition and the standing with Black lives.
Yo estoy apreciando también que haya un reconocimiento y que haya un apoyo por Black Lives.
And I want to assure you that I also stand with the Latinx community around all the issues of equity and inequality that we are all facing together.
Y también quiero asegurarles que estoy yo apoyando a la comunidad Latinx en todos los problemas o asuntos que son de equidad o de inigualdad.
We say those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it.
Nosotros decimos aquellos que olvidan la historia están condenados a repetirla.
But yet here we are repeating our history over and over and over again.
Pero aquí estamos nuevamente repitiendo nuestra historia una y otra vez.
It is my desire, it is my expectation that coming out of this pandemic,
Este es mi deseo y es mi expectativa que una vez que salgamos de esta pandemia,
that Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and other communities of color
que las comunidades negras, indígenas y otras comunidades de color
will lead our revitalization.
Puedan ser líderes en nuestra revitalización.
I celebrate with you Latinx Month.
Yo celebro con ustedes el mes de los latinos o Latinx.
And I am grateful that you are here today sharing your culture, your wisdom, and your optimism with us all.
Y estoy aquí muy agradecida de que ustedes compartieron con nosotros su cultura, su sabiduría y su optimismo con todos nosotros.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ryan.
Comisionada Ryan. Comisionada.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Fritz, for putting together this amazing panel.
Gracias, alcalde, y gracias, comisionada Fritz, para poder poner este panel excelente, poder lograrlo.
I'm just going to call out just 3 things that I took away from the presentation.
Solamente quiero resaltar 3 cosas que me parecieron muy importantes en la presentación.
I appreciated the acknowledgement of the percentage of Latinx community in the state and how you always need to double that when you look at the K-12 students.
Reconocí el reconocer cuál es el porcentaje de los latinos que tenemos en nuestro estado y también el reconocer que los niños que van a la escuela del kinder al 12º grado son el doble.
You are our future. You can see that in Multnomah County, where you always have double the amount of students than you do the general population. So
que ese es nuestro futuro, ese es nuestro destino. Siempre se puede observar en el condado de Multnomah que es el doble el número de los estudiantes de lo que es la población.
I also appreciated the calling out the essential workers. I've been well aware during COVID how grateful I am to the Latinx community in their service to the entire state.
También les agradezco que hayan ustedes determinado que son trabajadores esenciales. Yo durante el COVID realmente quiero agradecer que esta comunidad latina ha sido esencial en su trabajo.
And third, I want to acknowledge the time that we're in with the fires.
Y número 3, quiero reconocer los momentos que estamos viviendo con los incendios.
It's with a heavy heart that I think about our brothers and sisters in Talent and Phoenix.
Es con un corazón muy pesado y muy triste que tenemos que recordar a nuestros hermanos y personas que tenemos en Talent.
I'm here to always be an ally and support your heritage, your culture, and your wisdom this month, but every month of the year.
Estoy aquí siempre como un aliado para reconocer la herencia, la sabiduría y la cultura, pero sobre todo durante este mes, sobre todo en estos momentos.
Gracias.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Fritz.
Y comisionada Fritz.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for your presentation and Latinx PDX for putting this together. Thank you, Vanessa, Anthony, and Adrian for being here and for your work.
Gracias a todos, gracias a Latinx por PDX para poder tener a Vanessa y a los otros presentadores estando aquí.
And thank you, Sophia. Your interpretation skills are exceptional. Thank you.
Y gracias a Sofía porque tengo unos talentos interpretativos excepcionales.
While we've seen a growing number of Latinx individuals join the city workforce, they are still underrepresented in executive leadership positions. We need to do more to retain Latinx and BIPOC employees and help advance them. I'm very happy my successor, Commissioner-elect Carmen Rubio, will start filling that gap at the council leadership level. I'm hopeful she will not be the last.
Estamos ahora con el número muy adelantado de personas BIPOC, pero no tienen ellos puestos ejecutivos. Desafortunadamente, me da mucho gusto que pudimos elegir a la representante Carmen Rubio. Creo que no va a ser la primera o única persona que se ocupe en poner algunos puestos ejecutivos para otros latinos.
I appreciate the work Latinx PDX members have done to make the city a more inclusive workplace, as well as in their demonstrated commitment to support the Latinx community at large. Through the years, this affinity group has organized and hosted Know Your Right workshops, arts exhibits, spotlighting BIPOC artists, food tours featuring BIPOC business owners, and countless others.
1 second, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you not have that?
Okay, I got it. I just didn't have it in front of me. So, thank you. Estoy apreciando el trabajo que Latinx PDX, los miembros, han hecho para que la ciudad sea un lugar más inclusivo para su trabajo y también que haya un compromiso demostrado para apoyar a la comunidad latina en general. A través de los años, esta afinidad o este grupo de afinidad se ha organizado y ha tenido muchos talleres. de también cosas que se presenten como arte para poder demostrar, para poder resaltar a los trabajadores BIPOC, y han tenido a diferentes personas que son dueños de negocios y otras personas.
Latinx PDX members from all job classifications and bureaus have gone above and beyond to ensure that community members have equitable access to the information and resources they need to thrive in our city. A most recent example is the Emergency Coordination Center response to COVID-19, an essential group of city employees ensuring that all messaging is reaching community members whose primary language might not be English.
Los miembros de Latinx PDX de todas las clasificaciones y departamentos de trabajo han hecho más de lo que es necesario, más allá, para asegurarse que los miembros de la comunidad tienen un acceso que sea equitativo a la información y a los recursos que se necesitan para destacar y ser exitosos en nuestra ciudad. Uno de los ejemplos más recientes es la respuesta del Centro de Coordinación de Emergencias al COVID-19, que es un grupo esencial de empleados de la ciudad que quieren asegurarse que todos los mensajes puedan llegar a los miembros de la comunidad que no tengan como primer idioma el inglés.
Multilingual and multicultural employees in this affinity group and the diverse and empowered employees of Portland system are essential to the service we provide community. The knowledge, wisdom, and insight they bring to our institution are invaluable. Thank you for service today and always.
Los empleados multiculturales y multilingües en este grupo de afinidad, y con los empleados del sistema de Portland que sean empoderados y diversos, son esenciales para el servicio que le damos a la comunidad. El conocimiento, la sabiduría y la experiencia que ellos pueden traer a nuestra institución son invaluables. Así que gracias por su servicio hoy y siempre.
This is my last Latinx Heritage Month proclamation as a City Commissioner. I acknowledge my staffers past and present who led the reestablishment of the Latinx PDX Affinity Group, Cynthia Castro and Cristina Nieves, as well as those who have been actively involved, including Goldan Salazar and now Yesenia Carrillo.
Esta es la última proclamación para el mes de herencia latina que voy a tener como comisionada de esta ciudad. Quiero reconocer a las personas de mi personal, del personal pasado y presente, quienes dirigieron o fueron líderes del restablecimiento del grupo de afinidad Latinx PDX, Cynthia Castro, Cristina Nieves, y también los que han estado activamente involucrados, incluyendo a Goldan Salazar y ahora Yesenia Carrillo.
And thank you again to Sophia. This bilingual presentation has been truly special and I greatly appreciate it.
Y gracias nuevamente a Sofía porque esta presentación bilingüe ha sido muy especial y lo aprecio mucho. You're welcome.
That concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Concluye nuestra presentación. Gracias.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And Sophia, thank you for your incredible efforts translating for us today. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for all of our invited guests.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate it. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. So, colleagues, we're going to do the impossible. We are going to read 735, 736, 737 separately, and we're going to get through them really, really quickly because they're emergency items. Then Commissioner Udaley is excused. She has another event. And the rest of us will stick around for, they're all second readings except for one that requires almost no attention. So, Carla, please read 735.
Authorize the Bureau of Transportation to acquire certain temporary rights necessary for construction of the Safer Shoulders project through the exercise of the city's eminent domain authority.
Commissioner Udaley.
Thank you, Mayor. This project consists of infill of missing sidewalk gaps, widening of asphalt shoulders, addition of vertical protection for more separation from vehicle traffic, pedestrian crossings, and speed cushions for traffic calming. I'm going to turn it over to PBOT's Marty Maloney to present on the item. Marty, I would appreciate it if you could keep your presentation as brief as possible.
Oh, no problem. Good morning or good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Marty Maloney with PBOT Right of Way. We have a presentation put together for this item. However, since council is running short on time, I can just go ahead and move to answer any questions council may have at this time. I also just wanted to quickly add that all property owners that were affected by easements on the project have been informed either by phone or by mail, and were invited to attend the council meeting.
Commissioner Fritz.
Marty, could you just give a one sentence to tell people at home what this is? We've obviously all done our homework, but if you could just tell people what is the Safer Shoulders project?
So the Safer Shoulders project is over off of Stevenson Road, and it's going to involve sidewalk infill out there in that community. This ordinance would give City PBOT the ability to offer just compensation as well as to condemn if necessary for property rights to protect project timelines.
Thank you.
Very good. That sounds excellent. Colleagues, any further questions on this? Carla, is there any public testimony?
No one signed up, Mayor.
Please call the roll.
Hardesty.
Marty, I just want to say I really appreciate the due diligence that PBOT does before they do an eminent domain process. I don't think I've seen too many governments where you do eminent domain and you don't have a room full of people saying what a bad thing you're doing. So I just want to put that on the record, and I vote aye.
Daly.
Thank you so much, Marty. And just for anyone listening, these are very tiny little parcels allowing us to do mostly pedestrian improvements. I vote aye.
Fritz.
Thank you very much. I live near Southwest Stevenson Street. This is definitely needed, and there is an elementary school right on the street, so very much a good priority. Aye.
Ryan.
I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. 736, please, Carla.
Extend contract with Portland Streetcar Inc. through June 30, 2021, and add $1,070,300 in compensation for streetcar operations assistance.
Commissioner Daly.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a one-year contract extension with Portland Streetcar Inc. to extend through June 30th, 2021. The original 5-year contract has been in effect since October 1st, 2015, and includes a clause that allows for the extension of the contract. Staff are here to answer any questions that council may have.
Great. Colleagues, any questions?
I do have a question. Just I'm curious as to why we're extending it 1 year rather than actually having a new contract.
Hi, my name is Catherine Levine. I'm with the Bureau of Transportation. The original contract allows for a 5-year extension taken in 1 or 5 years. So we would envision, I believe, a new solicitation either at the end of this year or continue through the full 5 years and then have a new solicitation.
So we have a potential to every year be renewing it for 1 year for the next 4 years going forward?
There's a potential under the original contract. We did the public solicitation, open competitive solicitation in 2015, entered into a 5-year contract, not a 10-year, but just 5 years with the potential for renewal. In the midst of COVID, we opted for a 1 year so that we can assess how to best deliver the service most cost effectively. And that allows the Bureau to come back in 2021 with a longer term plan.
Thank you very much. That's exactly what I was looking for. Your last sentence is the one that hooked me. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any further questions? Carla, any public testimony on this item?
No one signed up, Mayor.
Please call the roll.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Udaly.
Thank you for joining us today, Catherine. I'm enjoying your 80s inspired blouse. I don't know if it's vintage or not, but I vote aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. 737, emergency ordinance.
Authorize the Bureau of Transportation to acquire permanent and temporary rights necessary for construction of the 4M Bikeway project with the exercise of the city's eminent domain authority.
Commissioner Daly.
Thanks again, Mayor. The 4M Bikeway project will be constructing bike lanes with pavement markings, sidewalk infill, street lighting, speed bumps, wayfinding signs, and tree plantings along the project boundaries. I'm going to turn it over once again to PBOT's Marty Maloney to present this item. We do have a 10-minute presentation. Marty, feel free to edit as you see appropriate.
Definitely. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners again. Marty Maloney with PBOT Right of Way. So I can kind of give you just the nuts and bolts. So PBOT is seeking council approval for this ordinance to allow the city to, or PBOT to offer compensation as well as to condemn on property rights necessary for this project. We are acquiring one permanent easement as well as 14 other additional temporary construction easements for the property. All affected owners have been informed of the necessary property rights, and we're invited to attend this reading as well. If council has any questions, I'm here to answer anything that you might have.
Nope. Perhaps we have some residents who'd like to testify. Carla, do we have anybody signed up?
No one signed up for this item, Mayor.
Very good. This is an emergency ordinance. Please call the roll.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Udaly.
Thank you, Marty. Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thanks, Marty. Appreciate it. Good project. I look forward to seeing that. Carla, we're going to go back and just do a bunch of short ordinances and or second readings. First up is 727. Second reading.
Amend the building code to move implementation details to the administrative rule, update asbestos requirements to conform to state regulations, update demolition inspections language to be consistent with current practices, increase fines for non-compliance, and make other modifications for clarity and consistency, and amend fee schedule.
Colleagues, this is a second reading of a non-emergency ordinance. We've already heard a presentation and an opportunity for public testimony. Is there any further business on this item? Seeing none, Carla, please call the roll.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Udaly.
Feel the need to make some brief remarks. My team and I work closely with BDS staff, experts in the field, and advocates to develop and implement the demolition ordinance when we had the BDS assignment. This ordinance was a landmark regulation to protect Portlanders, especially kids, from severe impacts from unregulated demolitions. I'm very supportive of the changes in front of us and appreciate the actions the Bureau has taken to improve this ordinance. I strongly support the fine increases to ensure that the demolition ordinance is taken seriously. I want to thank everyone at the Bureau, the mayor and his office, and advocates for continuing to work to get this right. I vote aye.
Fritz.
Thanks especially to Nancy Thorington and Mike Leafield in the Bureau of Development Services, and for everybody who's worked on this in the community. Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. And Chloe, I'm getting the information on the 4/5. We'll do one more second first. Carla, please read 728.
I was going to ask you about that. I'm glad.
Authorize the Bureau of Environmental Services to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Lake Oswego to cooperate on a potential replacement of the Tryon Creek wastewater treatment plant via a public-private partnership.
This is a second reading. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Hardesty.
I just want to say thank you to Andrew and his crew, because, oh my gosh, who would have thought I would ever understand what the heck we were talking about as it related to this project. I am so proud that they're being proactive and actually thinking about how the cost share components will be implemented. I like the fact that there are stopgaps in it. If there are, once we get to a place, if it's going to cost the city of Portland too much, the city is not obligated to continue it. And so I just think you did an incredible job of briefing us ahead of time. Otherwise, I'd have had 200 questions here at City Council. And want to just say, wonderful to see your smiling face, Carrie. Always a pleasure to have you at City Council. I vote aye.
Udaley?
Aye.
Fritz?
Likewise, Carrie, you were one of my very first staff members, so it's really great to see you doing the work that you're doing with people. Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye, the ordinance is adopted. We'll take a break in the run of show here and go to the 4/5 item, please.
Authorize the Bureau of Transportation to acquire certain permanent and temporary rights necessary for construction of the outer Northeast Halsey through 114th to 162nd project through the exercise of the city's eminent domain authority.
Commissioner Udaley.
Thank you, Mayor. Traffic safety on Northeast Halsey Street, east of 114th Avenue, has long been identified as a top priority for residents of East Portland. Here to present for PBOT once again is Marty Maloney.
Afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Again, my name is Marty Maloney, PBOT right-of-way. This council item gives PBOT the ability to offer just compensation as well as to condemn for necessary property rights to protect the overall project timeline. The city will be acquiring permanent and temporary property rights from about 16 property owners. All these property owners have been informed of the need for these property rights, either by phone or by mail, and we're invited to the reading of this agenda item. If council has any questions, I'd be happy to ask or happy to answer.
Thank you for bringing it forward. Colleagues, any questions? Carl, I assume as a 4/5, there's no public testimony.
No one signed up. Correct, Mayor.
Please call the roll.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Udaley?
These pedestrian crossings, lighting, sidewalk infill, and bike lanes are crucial investments for East Portland transportation equity. Thank you again, Marty. I vote aye.
Fritz?
Once again, good things happening in East Portland. Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye, the 4/5 ordinance is adopted. And Commissioner Udaley, I know you have to go, and colleagues, I'll get you out of here by 5:30 on the rest.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Item 729, please.
Accept bid of Moore Excavation, Inc. for the 2020 Local Improvement Districts project for $2,086,807.
Very good. Kathleen, you're up.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Kathleen.
Sorry, I apologize. You got the run of show. We're on a pretty tight time frame here today.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Kathleen Brennis-Marua for the record, Construction Services Procurement Manager. With me from the Bureau of Transportation are Andrew Abbey, the Local Improvement Districts Administrator, and Carrie Waters, Contract Equity Coordinator. We are here to recommend authorization to enter into a contract with Moore Excavation Incorporated for the 2020 Local Improvement Districts project. Before I go over the procurement process, Andrew will briefly highlight some aspects of the project, and Carrie will speak to the subcontracting equity goals. So I'll turn it over to Andrew.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'll be super brief, but I just wanted to know that the areas served by these 3 LIDs for which Moore will execute the construction contract have equity scores ranging from 6 to 10 on a 2 to 10 scale. The 3 LIDs therefore reflect PBOT's efforts to build infrastructure for historically underserved populations. As an example, projects included in this contract will reduce the backlog of Cully, which is over triple the citywide average. 9.3% of the streets in Cully are unpaved versus 2.8% citywide. Property owners participating in these 3 LIDs will financially benefit from the bid coming in 17% below the engineer's estimate, and will also benefit from a prime contractor who have done excellent work on 3 LIDs currently under construction on another contract. The highest proportion of construction dollars will be spent in the Cathedral Park neighborhood, which is strongly supportive of this project and which will build new sidewalks in that neighborhood. This project will aid persons with disabilities who currently must be driven in a lift-equipped van to a grocery store a few blocks away, but who will now benefit from having ADA-compliant sidewalks. Finally, the next highest proportion of these construction dollars will be spent in the Cully neighborhood, which is Portland's most diverse neighborhood, and will build sidewalks along a school. And with that, I'll turn it over to Carrie Waters.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Carrie Waters, and I serve as PBOT's Contract Equity Coordinator. Thank you for the opportunity to share a few brief insights on Moore Excavation's contract equity participation on this award. I'll try to keep it super brief. To start, I'm encouraged to hear of MEI's contract equity efforts over the last year, including one major change implemented to get a grasp on cost components much earlier in the bidding process. In this case, attainment of the 20% goal would have been difficult without participation from a COVID concrete subcontractor. In terms of subcontractor diversity, I'm encouraged to see that minority business enterprise participation totals just over 450,000, nearly 22%. I'm also encouraged to see that 2 of the subs on this project are working with the city for the first time, at least based on what we have in our best available data from the contract compliance reporting system. Also based in CCRS data, I see that 4 out of 8 of the COVID certified subs are new to working with MEI on city projects. As you may recall, the previous subcontractor equity rates for other MEI projects with the city are just over 10% each, so this project reflects a substantial improvement at nearly double that amount to previous efforts at 26%. Finally, I would just like to express my appreciation for Andrew Abbey's efforts in achieving our contract equity goals. As project manager, he is on the front lines of engagement with both community members benefiting and paying into these projects, as well as engagement with our contracting community and firms like MEI. Our project managers play a key role as advocates to rally for investment in contract equity, and I'm glad to work alongside Andrew in this realm. So with that, I'll hand it back to Kathleen, unless we have any questions or reflections from council.
Commissioner Hardesty has a question. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. I gave Andrew love when he didn't deserve it. So Andrew, the love I gave you before, now you deserve it. So now you should have it. Carrie, I'm curious. You talked about exceeding the minority goals for this contract, but you didn't give us a breakdown of actually what that means. How many African-American, Latino, Native American firms had the pleasure of working on the city contract? As you know, I always require that when I'm hearing about how wonderful we're doing when it comes to contracting with folks who don't traditionally get contracts with the city of Portland.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. I believe that breakdown is included in the report. So we've got Brothers Concrete Cutting, which is a Native-owned firm doing some concrete cutting. We've got Brothers IC LLC doing flagging, which is a Black-owned firm doing business with the city for the first time. And then the bulk is coming from R&R general contractors doing the concrete work, and that is a Latinx male-owned firm.
Thank you very much. Sometimes we get the reports in advance and sometimes not. So as I look through my board package, I did not see a report in there.
Okay.
It's always, for me, if there's an opportunity to get me a report in advance of a council meeting, I'm always very grateful for that because I will actually read it and then probably have more questions. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. So if I can just say, council previously approved 3 separate ordinances, which gave us the authority to solicit procurement services, the authority to competitively solicit for this project. The engineer's estimate was $2,516,687. And at that time, the confidence level was low. We issued the invitation to bid on June 17th, 2020, and opened bids on July 14th. We received 10 bids, and Moore Excavation Incorporated submitted the lowest responsive bid in the amount of $2,086,807, which, as Andrew said, is approximately 17% below the engineer's estimate. So Moore Excavation is in full compliance with all city contracting requirements, and I recommend council accept this report and authorize execution of the contract.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathleen. Any further questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept the report as presented.
Second.
So you got a motion from Commissioner Hardesty, a second from Commissioner Ryan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Hardesty,
Anytime I see Kerry Waters in front of the city council, I have much more confidence in whatever it is we're about to review. It is my pleasure to support this. It's clear that the additional effort was put in, and because the additional effort was put in, the outcomes are outcomes we can be proud of. Thank you very much, Andrew, Kathleen. Appreciate the work. I know if you just let things go as normal, we never get the results we want. So I understand that there was some additional outreach that made this possible. I vote aye.
Fritz,
Thank you for your report and for documenting what you've done. Aye.
Ryan,
Yes, thank you, Kathleen, Carrie, and Andrew. I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Excellent work. Thank you. I vote aye. The report's accepted. Next item, 730.
Authorize intergovernmental agreement with Metro to provide funding for the Arlene Snitzer Concert Hall Acoustical Enhancement Project not to exceed $1.5 million.
Colleagues, this is a project long desired by many in the community. This intergovernmental agreement authorizes the City of Portland Spectator Venues and Visitor Activities Fund, otherwise known as SVVAF, that's very catchy, to advance Metro up to $1.5 million to support the completion of the Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall Acoustical Enhancement Project. The cost for the acoustical project are being paid through a public-private partnership. The city is loaning funds to Metro at this time in order to progress construction and allow for project completion during the mandated COVID-19 closure. The amount provided to Metro under this IGA will be repaid to the SVVAF when Portland 5's renovation bonds, supported by the second amended and restated Visitors Facilities Intergovernmental Agreement, otherwise known as VFIGA, are issued sometime after January 4th, 2024. In other words, we're lending the money so we can do the project now while the facility is closed. And we're joined by Carl Lyle. If there's anything I forgot that's critical or any questions we need answered, he's the guy to do it. Hey, Carl.
Hi, thank you very much. So we're definitely at the time of the day where we're skipping presentations, so we will not go into our 12-slide deck. I do have Robin Williams with me, Executive Director of Portland 5, though, and I do think it would be worthwhile to have Robin just tell us a little bit about the need and some of the benefits of the project and go over those different funding sources just real briefly.
Good afternoon, Robin.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This is a really important project in that the current symphony shell has come to the end of its life, and we need to deal with it. And it's a big, massive, complex piece of equipment, probably the biggest piece of equipment in the theater. And it needs to be replaced. The Schnitz is the home to the Oregon Symphony. But it's also the home to many other local nonprofits and other organizations. The project we're doing with this project is we are actually installing a digital acoustic project. And while very expensive, it will allow us to change the acoustics in the hall so that we can make the hall be a better fit for every single user group. The acoustic shell is great for symphonic music because it pushes the sound out and shapes it to where it can cover the area, but that's all it does. This system will allow us to deploy a variety of speakers and microphones throughout through the theater very discreetly, and allows us at a push of a button to change the acoustics of the hall. So if we need it to sound like a cathedral, we push a button and it sounds like a cathedral. If we need it to sound like a lecture hall, and literary arts is one of our major users, it'll sound like a lecture hall. So everybody's art form will be so much better by this very cutting edge technology. So it'll also allow us to maximize the use of the hall because we won't have this massive shell that we have to set up and tear down before we can bring in another event. So that will be very, very beneficial to us. The project was really caught the attention of donors, which a replacement shell would not have done. And we've been able to bring in private investment with the public dollars to actually bring this project to fruition. We think it's important to the longevity of Schnitzer Concert Hall and keeping it really relevant in the future years. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Colleagues, any questions on this issue? Carla, is there any public testimony?
Yes, Mayor, we have one person, Walter Jaffe.
Hey, Walter, welcome. Thanks for your patience.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Loudly and clearly.
Okay, good. It's the end of the day, so I'll try to make this very fast. Thank you, Mayor and Council members. I'm Walter Jaffe, co-founder with Paul King of Whitebird. We have been bringing outstanding contemporary dance from around the world to Portland for 23 years. Greatly appreciate the opportunity to testify on behalf of Portland's 5 Centers for the Arts and the request for $1.5 million. This is to support an essential acoustical improvement project at the Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall. Since we began Whitebird in 1997, the Schnitzer has been a major venue for us. We have presented 133 dance performances over 23 years at this beautiful concert hall. We are tremendously excited that P5 and Robin Williams are undertaking a major project of replacing the outmoded and worn out symphony cell with a state-of-the-art acoustical system. There are several compelling reasons for doing this. This acoustical system will replace the old symphony shell that takes up stage space needed by others. The system will provide variable acoustics, so it can be set to meet the specific acoustical needs for every type of event, lectures, dance, etc. This is what Robin was referring to. This system serves all users. The symphony shell serves symphonies only. The shell serves symphonies only. The cost benefits are huge for all users of the Schnitzer. For Whitebird, we would have to pay considerable labor costs for the time needed to remove the bulky shell in order to install lighting equipment for our dance companies. And then after our performances, we would then need to pay for the restoration of the shell. This new acoustical system will be permanently in place, so there is no need for the extensive time and labor needed to take down and restore the shell. And finally, with this major new acoustical system, the Schnitzer, which opened in 1928, will become one of the most desirable and acoustically advanced venues on the West Coast. Thank you for your time.
Walter, thank you. And I want to thank you for your many, many years of contributing to our arts and culture community here in the city of Portland and Whitebird and beyond. Thank you. And I also want to appreciate that you stuck around for the better part of 3.5 hours for your 3 minutes of testimony. So thank you for that.
Happy to do that. Happy to do that. Okay.
Great. Any further comments, questions? Carla, please call the roll.
This is a non-emergency.
You're right. I'm sorry. This is the first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading, and we'll vote on it next week. Thank you all. Next item, second reading, 731.
Amend business license law code related to the administration of the residential rental registration program and housekeeping changes.
Second reading, we've heard the presentation. There's been public testimony. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. 732, also a second reading.
Authorize sewer revenue bonds to finance sewer system capital improvements in an amount not to exceed $350 million and to refund outstanding bonds.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Fritz.
Commissioner Ryan, you'll get used to voting on $350 million things. Aye.
Yeah, right. You want
Ryan.
to
Aye.
Wheeler.
I want to be clear. It's not to exceed $350 million. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Second reading, 733.
Approve findings to authorize an exemption to the competitive bidding requirements, authorize a competitive solicitation for the use of the alternative contracting method of negotiated request for proposals, and authorize the Chief Procurement Officer to execute a contract with the successful proposer upon acceptance by the Council of the procurement report for the Mount Tabor Yard Maintenance Facility and Multimodal Pathway Project for an estimated $8.1 million.
Second reading. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Fritz.
I'm really proud of the 2014 bond measure. I'm really proud of the team that has been implementing it. Thank you, Robin Laughlin. You're certainly making my life easier as I go around neighborhood meetings talking about the Parks Levy. Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. 734.
Amend property tax exemption for multi-unit housing development code and inclusionary housing code to extend the current inclusion rate until 2021.
Colleagues, this item codifies in the Housing Bureau's code the action the council took in the zoning code in July. It's technical in nature, and PHB is here to answer any questions anybody may have. Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, Carla, is there any public testimony on this item?
No one signed up, Mayor.
This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Next item, 738, second reading.
Amend local improvement district procedure for technical clarifications.
Second reading. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. 739, second reading.
Vacate Southwest Broadway Drive at Southwest Grant Street, subject to certain conditions and reservations.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Fritz.
Thanks again to everybody who got the Morris Marks House moved, both internally and in the community. Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Been fun watching that project as it comes to fruition. And once again, it was a great presentation. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. And I believe our last item, Carla, is item 717, which was pulled from the consent agenda this morning, and it is also a second reading.
717, amend seismic related definitions for existing buildings code to update references from the Old American Society of Civil Engineers standards to the current version of the standards.
Was there a question or a comment somebody wanted to make on this before we call the roll?
Mark Rogers and Roger Jones both requested it to be pulled, but I let them know they could send in written testimony.
That would be sufficient. Plus, it's a second reading anyway.
Correct.
We already had the presentation. We already took public testimony. Please call the roll.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Fritz.
I want to publicly apologize to the environmental services staff that I mistakenly asked to sign on at the last minute, thinking it was a different item. Thank you very much for your willingness to help me out. Aye.
Ryan.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Carla, am I correct that completes our business for today?
That is all, Mayor. Yes.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to our staff for sticking around. It was a long day, but we got through it. We are adjourned. We'll see you all tomorrow.